Chapter 559. 3 days later. The entire southwestern Yangzhou was in an uproar. This was because in the morning, the certification headquarters had announced to the public that the Iron Bone clan had been promoted to a sect and had changed its name to the Sect of All Times. Impossible. Iron Bone hasn't been promoted to level 6 for long. How can it be promoted to sect so quickly? Is someone spreading rumors? Just as the warriors were doubting, the certification hall released a new issue of the potential rankings. The first place was Sect of All Times, formerly Iron Bone Clan. It was written clearly in black and white. He had no choice but to believe it. From a non-rated sect to a 5th-rated sect, such a speed of improvement was absolutely unprecedented. Wait a minute. Wasn't it a little too arrogant to use Eternal as its name? Everyone's reaction time was quite long, and they finally realized the words Sect of All Times. Little did they know. Yi Tianxing almost fell off his chair when he heard the name Jun Changshao. The strongest sect of all time. The first 4 words each contained an extremely powerful aura of courting death. If this was released, he would definitely become the public enemy of the entire continent. As the hall master of the main branch, Yi Tianxing knew very well that the name of a sect could be domineering, but it couldn't be too overboard. Otherwise, it wouldn't end well. Several hundred years ago, a group of youngsters created the heaven-defying faction, but in the end, they were not able to defy the heavens. The strongest sect of all time. It was tantamount to directly negating the other sects and becoming the most superior one. If other forces found out about this, it would definitely cause a lot of trouble. After careful consideration, Yi Tianxing purposely erased the word strongest and announced it to the world under the name Sect of All Times. This was definitely a form of protection for Jun Changxiao's sect. Even so, the name of the Sect of All Times had spread far and wide. When the various factions found out about it, they were somewhat dissatisfied. Named after the ancient times. How arrogant and egotistical. If he had known that there was also the word strongest, he would have definitely picked up his weapon and fought with Jun Changxiao. Academy building. Situ Haoyun retracted his spiritual sense and smiled. That kid wants the sect to exist for eternity. AI. The vice president shook his head and said, how arrogant. The demonic fiend sect and the God-slaying hall division had also received the news. They felt a strong sense of disdain towards the Sect of All Times. There was no denying it. This new sect had a lot of potential, but that was nothing more than potential. Only by truly developing, surviving, and gaining a foothold on the continent could one be considered to have true ability. The Demon Fiend Sect's branch leader said, Jun Changxiao is someone who likes to stir up trouble. Who knows, if he offends a first-rate sect one day, his sect will be destroyed. Sect of All Times. Jun Changxiao, who was in the sect, knew about the potential rankings. He shook his head and said, just treat it as a short form. In the beginning, he had also thought of this name. Adding, the strongest, would only make it more imposing. From today onwards, Iron Bone disciples would also be changed to Sect of All Times disciples. Jun Changxiao's spiritual senses entered the space ring and he held the experience talisman in his hand. This is the biggest gain. Pa! He gently crushed it. Hoo. In an instant, the spiritual energy in Jun Changxiao's body crazily surged. His strength also continued to rise, finally becoming a grade 3 sword warrior king. This feeling great. After breaking through, he didn't test his strength. Instead, he took out the sword path aptitude fluid and muttered, I've already used 1 bottle. Who should I give this to? Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, Yi Xingchen. No. They didn't have sword path aptitude. Using the aptitude fluid would definitely be useless. The system said, you can give it to Zhou Hong. His sword path aptitude is still lacking compared to the host. He should be able to use the aptitude fluid. Then I'll give it to him. Jun Changshao made his decision. After being promoted to a sect, he was also rewarded with 2 bottles of Saint Rank and Saint Rank Aptitude Fluid. Qingyang has already used it. Let's give it to Xinji and Xingqian first. Jun Changshao said. Among the inner sect disciples, Xiao Ziji and Yi Xingqian were undoubtedly the 2 main battle generals. Giving them the Saint Rank Aptitude Fluid was a good choice. Thus, only the high-rank sect leader's sphere was left. Jun Patriarch still had a medium-rank aptitude fluid in his ring, so he muttered, I'll find a time to go to a dangerous place and catch 2 good spirit beasts to guard the house. Other martial artists would be extremely excited if they could catch ferocious beasts, but he directly went to catch spirit beasts. How pretentious was that? Pa! Patriarch, Xiao Ziji, who had just entered the main hall, hurriedly changed his words. Don't talk about him. I feel awkward writing sect leader Jun every day. I need time to get used to it. Where's Xingqian? Junior brother is training in the training tower. He'll be here soon. Jun Changshao waved casually and said, there's a bottle of aptitude fluid here. Take it first. Xiao Ziji hurriedly caught it, his eyes filled with excitement. After drinking it so many times, he definitely understood that after consuming it, his aptitude would definitely rise from top grade to saint rank. Thank you, Patriarch, for your reward. Xiao Ziji hurriedly opened the bottle and drank the aptitude-modifying fluid without hesitation. His spirit root immediately rose from top grade to saint rank, and his realm also rose from 8th stage Wuzong to 9th stage. Patriarch Zhou Hong also walked in. Jun Changshao threw the medium-rank sword Dao aptitude-modifying fluid over, and said, take it, it can increase your aptitude in the way of the sword. Zhou Hong was startled. He had never taken the modification fluid before, so he did not know that the sect leader would have such a miraculous item. Patriarch, don't waste time, hurry up and drink it. Puzzled, Zhou Hong opened the cork and drank the modification liquid. There was a mellow aroma of malt. His whole face immediately turned red. One look and one could tell that he was a person who couldn't handle alcohol. However, when his aptitude was raised, his eyes immediately flashed with a sharp sword light, and he stood there dumbstruck. At that moment, Zhou Hong felt that his understanding of the way of the sword was much stronger than before, and his realm had also risen from 6th grade sword great master to 7th grade sword great master. In the past, he was the strongest among the Iron Bone disciples. Because he cultivated the way of the sword, he was unable to enjoy the various resources of the sect and was gradually surpassed by others. Zhou Hong did not care. As usual, he comprehended the way of the sword and the Ling Jian God technique. Although his realm did not rise quickly, his understanding of the way of the sword increased day by day. Thank you, Patriarch. Zhou Hong cupped his hands and said. As his aptitude increased, the sharpness in his words became even stronger. Jun Changshao said, when you have time, go and participate in the qualification battle and obtain the qualifications to challenge other geniuses, so as to win honor for our sect of all times. He had a bold idea that did not need to be legally responsible. Until one day, the heaven, earth, and man list of the gathering of heroes would be filled with disciples of his sect. Zhou Hong said, disciple will go down the mountain now. Wait for next month. Jun Changshao said. Li Qingyang and Zhou Hong left, and Yi Xingqian, who had just come out of the training tower, walked into the main hall. This guy was still cold and aloof as usual, but when Jun Patriarch threw over the aptitude-changing liquid, his eyes suddenly flashed with passion. It was impossible to tell that he was once a martial emperor. After all the potions were distributed, Jun Changshao sat down and whispered, these 2 sect leader balls can't be idle. I'll find time to go to the famous danger zones to play. Patriarch. Li Qingyang reported, Song Mountain Sect's elder Ma, Qingyang City's 8 city lords, and many family heads have come to congratulate you. Invite them in. At the mountain gate. Ma Yunteng, Xie Guankuan, and the others stared with their eyes wide open, because the plaque actually wrote the strongest sect of all times. June Patriarch. Everyone was invited inside. Just as they were about to talk about the matter, they heard June Chang say with a smile, "Our sect has been promoted to a sect. This is a joyous occasion. Today, I will hold a banquet and invite all of you to come. Serve the wine and dishes." Soon, the martial arts practice field was filled with tables, wine and delicacies were served, and the disciples sat down one after another. Ma Yunteng and the others swallowed back the words on the tip of their tongue, raised their wine glasses, and said in unison, "Congratulations to June Patriarch, and hope that the sect of all times will be even more glorious and powerful in the future." Chapter 560. The promotion of a sect to sect of all times was a joyous occasion. June Changshao had already planned to hold a big banquet a few days ago. Now that Ma Yunteng and the others had come to congratulate him, he decided to set it today. The disciples of the sect of all times rarely had time to cultivate, so they ate and drank to their heart's content. After 3 rounds of drinking, Su Xiaoma and Li Fei blushed as they played rock-paper-scissors. Because they were beginners and didn't know the rules, they quarreled for a long time and didn't even drink a bowl of wine. Li Tian was the most direct. He didn't play rock-paper-scissors. He held a jar of wine and drank with whoever he didn't like. In the end, he and Cui Bujian started to fight. "Come, come. You think I'm scared of you?" The two of them rested their legs on the chairs, rolled up their sleeves, grabbed a full jar of wine, and began to drink. The disciples beside them followed and had a lot of fun. Li Qingyang and Xiao Ziji were more reserved. However, every time a junior brother came with wine, they didn't refuse. During this time, the disciples of the sect of all times had been focused on cultivation. It was rare for them to have a chance to relax, so they didn't use spiritual energy to dissolve the alcohol. If they drank because of celebration, if they stayed sober, it would lose its meaning. June Patriarch. Looking at the disciples of the sect of all times having fun, Ma Yunteng raised his wine and said with a smile, "Your disciples are very happy." June Changshao raised his wine and said with a smile, "I'm also very happy." He had been working hard to create a warm family. So far, the disciples didn't cheat or scheme against each other, so it was undoubtedly a success. Junior sister. Lu Wanshi took the wine and said, "You can't drink." Senior sister. Yao Menjing begged, "I'll just drink one sip, okay?" The little girl had awakened her innate demon body, and the senior brothers and sisters took good care of her as usual. She was like the pearl of the sect of all times. Everyone was having fun, and she also wanted to join in, so she had the idea of drinking. "No." Lu Wanshi said, "You are still young." As he spoke, he picked up the bowl of wine, but before he could move it to his mouth, it was taken back by Li Luoqiu, who was sitting next to him, and said, "You're not old either." Therefore, Lu Wanshi and Yao Menjing both placed their chins on the table. Their eyes were filled with envy as they stared at their senior brothers and sisters who were drinking. June Patriarch. Outside the mountain gate, Ma Yunteng, Xie Guankuan, and the others, whose faces were red from drinking, cupped their hands and said, "Farewell. Have a safe journey." June Changshao said. Everyone walked down the stairs. From beginning to end, no one mentioned the strongest sect of all time written on the plaque. It wasn't that he didn't want to mention it, but when he thought about it carefully while drinking, June Patriarch's arrogance and strength, and the fact that he considered himself to be the strongest sect, seemed to be the most normal. The food made by the sect of all times is really delicious. Isn't that so? One of sect Master June's disciples won the championship in the culinary competition. Oh right, don't you think that Elder Zhen looks a little familiar? I have the same feeling. I think I've seen him somewhere before. I remember now. 20 years ago, the Southwest Yangzhou organized a formation competition. The one who was treated as a guest of honor by the King City's city lord seemed to be him. Zhen Dejuan. He's Jin de Juan. Heavens, that's a formation king. How did he become an elder of the sect of all times? The city lords and family heads who went down the mountain were fighting over each other. After the banquet ended, the disciples of the sect of all times didn't cultivate because Jun Changshao specially allowed them to rest for a day. Everyone was still a little unused to suddenly not cultivating, so they all helped Black 1 and 2 Black clean up the tableware and chairs. Su Xiaoma called his junior brothers over while he was still drunk. He stood on the training ground and began to boast vividly. Jun Changshao stood alone on the roof of the main hall. A cool breeze blew over, and he instantly felt comfortable. 10,000 disciples, a fifth-rate sect. They were undoubtedly one step closer to becoming the strongest sect in the Falling Star continent. Phew. Jun Changshao took a deep breath and said, "This is just the beginning. The sect still has a long way to go." Creak. Whoosh in and in, the door was pushed open. A cold wind rushed in like a knife, bringing with it heavy snow. The martial cultivators who were drinking and having fun inside stopped abruptly and turned to look outside. They saw a fairy-like lady in white walk in. "Big brother, this lady is so beautiful." A martial artist's eyes lit up. The martial artist who called him Big Brother hit his head and said softly, "Keep your eyes open when you're outside." "Yes, yes." The martial artist who was hit hurriedly retracted his gaze. The others turned their heads and continued to drink and chat. They only occasionally looked over and couldn't help but exclaim in their hearts that there was such a beautiful lady in this world. In the Falling Star continent, except for the occasional hedonistic disciples of the big families, most of the ordinary martial cultivators lived very cautiously. They wouldn't dare to flirt with beauties when they saw them. Not to mention, this was the ice wasteland, and there was only one inn within a radius of several hundred miles. For a woman to dare to come here alone, she was definitely not an ordinary person. Mississippi, the waiter greeted her with a smile and said, "Do you want a meal or a room?" "A meal." The lady in white found a seat near the window and sat down. Her tone was even colder than the whistling north wind outside. "Miss, what do you want to eat?" "Anything." The waiter had seen many customers after all. He hurriedly smiled and said, "Please wait a moment." Since the lady in white sat down, her bright eyes had been looking out of the window. It was a world of ice and snow. The whole world was only silver white. "Have you heard of the Iron Bone clan in the southwest Yangzhou?" Someone drank a bowl of wine and said with a grin. "Not only have I heard of it, I also know that this clan has been promoted to a sect." The lady in white heard this and her eyebrows frowned slightly. "It can't be, this Iron Bone clan hasn't been famous for long. How could it be promoted to a sect so quickly? I heard that they changed their name to something like 10. Yes, Sect of all times." Someone said. Sect of all times? The lady in white frowned slightly and thought, is he serious? A newly promoted fifth-rate clan dares to use 10,000 ages as its name. How arrogant. This is a remote place like the southwest Yangzhou. That's why a small clan can be so glorious. If it was in our northeast Lu Yangzhou, it would have been destroyed long ago. That person said as he raised his bowl. Xiao. Suddenly, a sword light flashed past. That martial artist was stunned because the hand holding the bowl was separated from his eyes and fell on the table. A miserable scream was heard. Many martial artists in the inn all looked at the seat near the window in shock. The lady in white gently put the unsheathed sword on the table and said, "If you talk nonsense again, you won't be able to keep your head." These simple words contained endless coldness, causing everyone present to feel a chill down their spine. This lady. She was indeed not simple. Chapter 561. Whoosh whoosh, the north wind howled, and the ground was frozen. Lu Qianqian, dressed in white, walked alone in the snow. Because she did not use her spiritual power, the feather-like snowflakes fell on her black hair and shoulders. she seemed to be one with the world. Whoosh! Whoosh! At this moment, dozens of martial artists on snowfield wolves caught up from behind. Big brother! A martial artist with gauze wrapped around his right wrist said angrily, "It's this woman." He was the guy who spoke at the inn earlier. Because of a casual remark, his right hand was cut off by Lu Qianqian. "Hey!" The leader rushed over and blocked her path. He shouted, "Why did you cut my brother?" He said something he shouldn't have said, Lu Qianqian said calmly. "What did I say?" The martial artist with the broken hand said angrily and sadly, "Didn't I say that if Iron Bone was in northeast Luzhou, as long as he dared to be arrogant, his entire sect would be destroyed?" Whoosh! A sword flashed, and a head flew out. Plop! That cultivator's body directly fell to the ground. Blood sprayed onto the snowy ground, dyeing it red. Finally, there was a slight difference in the vast expanse of whiteness. "Brother!" The leader's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Lu Qianqian withdrew her sword and said calmly, "He seems to have forgotten my reminder." Yes. He had forgotten. He spoke carelessly again, and his head was lost. Although Lu Qianqian was not in the sect, she was still the eldest disciple of the sect of all times. If someone dared to talk about destroying a sect in front of her, she would definitely punish him severely. "Damn it!" The leader said angrily, "You killed my brother. I won't rest until you're dead." "Brothers!" He drew his sword angrily and said, "Cut this woman into pieces." Clang! Clang! Everyone took out all kinds of weapons. They stepped on the snowfield wolves' backs and charged forward angrily. "You're courting death." Lu Qianqian's eyes flashed coldly. Whoosh whoosh! In an instant, the area was filled with cold air. Even the snowflakes falling from the sky were frozen. What's going on ahead? The scattered martial cultivators walking on the ice field felt an extremely cold chi appear in the distance, and their gazes were all filled with astonishment. "Go!" Someone said, "Let's go and take a look." Schwa! 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 Everyone moved forward, but the deeper they went, the colder they felt the temperature drop. It was so cold that it made their hair stand on end. Very soon. When they arrived at the area where the cold air was the most intense, their eyes immediately widened. In his field of vision, there were dozens of lifelike ice sculptures of warriors riding snowy wolves in various postures. Strange. Someone was puzzled. Who would be so bored as to carve such an ice sculpture here? No. It's not an ice sculpture, it's a Taoist master and the snowy plains wolf, they've all been sealed in ice. A martial cultivator said in horror. What? Everyone's eyes were filled with shock. To be able to freeze a living person as well as the snowy plains wolf, which was the most resistant to cold, this was definitely something that only a profound ice martial cultivator could do. Look! Someone pointed at the frozen corpse on the ground and said in shock, "It's the guy whose hand was cut off. How did he die here? Could it be that this person found helpers to intercept the lady in white and was killed by her? His helpers were all frozen as well. That lady is extremely cold. Perhaps she's an ice martial cultivator." Although the Snow Track Valley's strength is not strong, they have the 4th-tier Extreme Cold Palace as their backer. Daring to kill their people is tantamount to getting into big trouble. There were not many passers-by in the ice field, but the news that a martial cultivator had been frozen was definitely a big deal. Therefore, it quickly spread to the cities further away. Although there were no witnesses, everyone was certain that the lady in white was the culprit. When the news reached the Snow Track Valley, the Valley Master was furious. He immediately sent thousands of disciples riding snowy wolves to conduct a carpet search in the ice field. Extreme Cold City. The colossal Extreme Cold Palace also received the news. Palace Master. In the main hall, a white-haired elder cupped his hands and said, "To be able to freeze the people of the Snow Track Valley, that girl is definitely not an ordinary ice martial cultivator." I think we should find her as soon as possible. She might be a very good seedling. Second elder's words make sense. Another elder agreed. The palace master of the extreme cold palace was a middle-aged man about 40 years old. He sat at the head of the table and thought for a while before saying, "Tell the Snow Track Valley to capture that girl and send her to the extreme cold palace immediately." Yes. The second elder was about to leave. One of his subordinates reporting to the palace lord, "The Snow Track Valley has sent news that the woman who committed the crime has been found on the icy plains hill." In the end, the hundreds of disciples that were sent out, along with 5 peak martial arts grandmasters, were all frozen. What? The palace master of the extreme cold palace was stunned. Freezing a normal martial cultivator was still understandable. However, to be able to freeze 5 peak stage Wuzong, this was not simple at all. Palace master. The second elder said excitedly, "This girl's cultivation is either extremely high or she has a special ice attribute physique. Otherwise, it would be impossible for her to freeze so many people and 5 peak stage Wuzong so easily." The palace master of the extreme cold palace thought for a while and said, "Second elder, third elder, the 2 of you go to the Snow Track Valley and help them capture that girl." Yes. The 2 elders accepted the order and headed to the Snow Track Valley without stopping. The valley master, who was still worrying, heard that 2 martial king experts had been sent from behind the scenes. He hurriedly went out to welcome them personally. "Cut the crap." The second elder said bluntly, "Is there any news about that girl?" Reporting to elder son. The valley master of the Snow Track Valley hurriedly said, "According to the culprit's route, I guess that she might be heading to the Endless Ice Sea." The Endless Ice Sea is the coldest place in the northeast Lu province. It is said that there is also the extreme mysterious ice pool. If this girl doesn't have a special physique, she definitely wouldn't go there. "Let's go." Elder son said, "We will intercept her at the entrance of the Endless Ice Sea." With Lu Qianqian's successive ice seals, the northeast Lu province, which was originally quite peaceful, was instantly abuzz with the news. Many people were discussing who exactly this woman was. Unfortunately, from the limited information, no one knew who she was or which sect she came from. Snow Track Valley's backer is the Extreme Cold Palace. This sect's strength is not inferior to Miaohua Palace at all. "I seem to have gotten into trouble," Lu Qianqian thought as she walked on the road. Although she thought so, there was no trace of worry on her face. It seemed that if she got into trouble, then so be it. As expected of the eldest disciple of the sect of all times. She had the demeanor of June Patriarch, who was calm and collected in the face of trouble. Southwest Yangzhou. Iron Bone Mountain. The disciples were cultivating as usual. Jun Changshao would occasionally think of Lu Qianqian and thought to himself, she should have already reached the northeast Lu province. I hope that she can return smoothly from her training and not encounter any danger outside. The system said, "Your eldest disciple has a cold personality and is not good at socializing with others. She seems to be incompatible with the whole world. Who knows what kind of trouble she will get into?" "Shut your crow's mouth," Jun Changshao scolded. However, he was also worried. He did not have cell phones or WeChat to contact his disciple. If she encountered danger outside, what should he do? "It's easy." The system said, as long as the host's cultivation increases, the distance of the telepathic technique will increase. At that time, covering the entire falling star continent will not be a problem. Jun Changshao immediately rolled his eyes. Wasn't this nonsense? I also want to increase my cultivation, but the key is that I can't increase it. No. I have to quickly develop an intelligence agency and spread to other provinces to form a larger network of communication. The telepathic technique's distance was determined by one's cultivation. However, if it was like a signal tower, there would be one at a certain distance, and it could also cover all areas. Not to mention, After the sect was promoted to a sect, there would be more things to face in the future. They had to pursue faster, more accurate, and more comprehensive information acquisition. Chapter 562. Jun Changshao called Li Luoqiu over and told her about his idea of expanding the intelligence network. Patriarch. Li Luoqiu said, according to what you said, it's a big project to cover the whole continent. We don't have enough manpower in the Drizzle Hall, so we can't do it in a short time. If it doesn't work, Jun Changshao said, then think of a way to extend the intelligence network to Luzhou in the northeast. Li Luoqiu understood and smiled meaningfully. So Patriarch is worried about Lu Qianqian. Yes. Jun Changshao, who was destined to be alone, naturally did not hear the hidden meaning. He did not deny it. After all, she's the eldest disciple of my sect. I'm a little worried about her training outside. It was definitely not an emotional factor. Even if it were Xiao Ziji or Yi Xingqian, if they went to Luzhou in the northeast, he would also be worried. Both his palms and the back of his hands were his flesh. Jun Patriarch would protect anyone who was bullied or in trouble. Li Luoqiu said, I can transfer people from Yangzhou in the southwest and pull the intelligence network to Luzhou in the northeast. However, because we don't have enough people, we may not be able to send any news immediately. As long as the news can be sent, it doesn't matter if it's 2 or 3 hours late. Jun Changshao said. Li Luoqiu shook her head. It may be 1 or 2 days late. The distance was too far and there were not many people. It was really not easy to pull the network signal from Yangzhou in the southwest to Luzhou in the northeast. However, since the Patriarch was worried about Lu Qianqian, Li Luoqiu would definitely comply. On the same day, she contacted all the intelligence stations in Yangzhou in the southwest and selected people to go to Luzhou in the northeast. With the current strength of the members of the Drizzle Hall, they could communicate with each other from 300 to 500 miles away. Therefore, there would be people stationed in the nearby towns every once in a while. Of course, they could not be idle. The intelligence personnel would ask the higher-ups whether to open a beast material store according to the local situation. Jun Changxiao's reply was permission. Therefore, in the long distance from Yangzhou in the southwest to Luzhou in the northeast, many animal material stores opened one after another. Because their reputation had been established early on, the daily profits were very good. Right now, the Eternal Sect had all the money and spirit stones they needed. Only in terms of strength, they could not be compared to the sects that had been around for hundreds and thousands of years. However, it would be soon. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others were about to break through to the peak of Wuzong. When they reached this level and became martial kings, the fighting strength of the sect would definitely increase tremendously. Wu Huang was one of the fourth-rate sections. Was he very strong? I'm sorry, but although our sect of all times doesn't have Wu Huang, we have a lot of martial kings. 10 of us against you. No? Then let's add another 90. There were many inner and outer sanctum disciples in the sect of all times who had the talent and resources to break through to martial king. The only thing they lacked was time to grow. Phew. In the study, when the effect of the Talisman of Insight passed, Jun Changshao put the paper with the secret manual on the table and rubbed his temples tiredly. Shangguan Xianyao carefully sorted them out, her bright eyes filled with admiration. She said, Sovereign, you're too amazing. In just half a month, you've improved all these half-finished products that I've researched. Pa. She put another thick piece of paper on the table and said, these are more than 10 martial techniques that Disciple has been researching recently. I hope Patriarch can help improve them. Plop. Jun Changshao fell to the ground. He grabbed the table with difficulty and propped himself up. He collapsed. Take it away, take it away. I feel like vomiting when I see the incantations and meridian diagram. Half a month. Improving 2,000 to 3,000 half-finished martial techniques was definitely a painful torture. It was to the extent that June Patriarch dreamed of walking incantations every night when he slept. Of course. It was painful and happy. Because the number of martial techniques that could be exchanged for the universe 9 seals palms increased from 0 to more than 600, the other martial techniques also had their own gains. Relying on buying outside, not to mention the price, it was a big problem whether he could gather so many in such a short time. Patriarch Li Qingyang came to see him. Disciple has realized a problem. Speak. Jun Chengshao said. Li Qingyang said, although our sect has all kinds of resources for our fellow disciples to cultivate, we still don't have any high-level mental cultivation techniques. That's true. Jun Chengshao held his chin. The sect of all times had a lot of martial techniques, but in terms of mental cultivation techniques, there was only the Yi Jin Jing and the clear heart technique. Although the Yi Jin Jing was strong, it could only be cultivated from the beginning of the channel opening stage. The disciples who entered later could not learn it at all because of their high level. The clear heart technique could calm the heart and stabilize it, but it was only a support. It could not be compared to the real mental cultivation technique. This is a problem. Jun Chengshao murmured. He could rely on all kinds of resources to let his disciples break through faster, but resources were limited. Especially when breaking through a big realm, mental cultivation techniques were especially important. Our sect of all times wants to be established in the falling star continent and become the strongest sect. We must also have high-quality mental cultivation techniques. Jun Chengshao opened the technique pavilion and began to read all kinds of martial techniques, hoping to find a suitable mental cultivation technique for his disciples. Got it. 5 Elements Heaven Reflection Technique. According to the introduction, this was a very profound 5 elements mental cultivation technique. It was divided into 5 parts: metal, wood, water, and fire. One could cultivate all of them or only one of them. If one cultivated any one of them to the extreme, one could even create a corresponding 5 elements physique. The introduction of the martial techniques in the technique pavilion was all about how awesome it was. This should be good. Jun Chengshao looked down and the corner of his mouth twitched. Because the number of mental cultivation techniques that he wanted to exchange was not 3 to 4,000, not 1 to 2,000, just 998. Just 998. 5 Elements Heaven Reflection Technique. Xinyao. Jun Chengshao said, can you create a mental cultivation technique? This, Shengguan Xinyao said, I don't have as profound martial arts as the Patriarch. Creating a mental cultivation technique, maybe, it's decided. Jun Chengshao said, put the palm technique and fist technique aside first. Focus on researching mental cultivation techniques. As long as you have a little idea, immediately research it. The more, the better. Oh, okay. Shengguan Xinyao was puzzled. Patriarch, why don't you create a mental cultivation technique? This question stumped Jun Chengshao. I want to create one too, but I don't have as strong brain cells as you. Cough, cough. Jun Chengshao said with his hands behind his back, I want to nurture you to become a master faster. Shengguan Xinyao's eyes lit up. She said seriously, I will not let the Patriarch down. I will work hard to research more mental cultivation techniques. Sigh. The system sighed and said, poor girl, you were tricked by this shameless guy again. Whoosh on the training field, Jun Chengshao held the green dragon crescent blade and slashed in the air frequently, dragging out flaming blade energy. Ka ka ka. The friction between the scorching flames and the air seemed to tear the space apart. Shua. Jun Chengshao communicated with the Guanyu statue in his mind. He saw flames erupting in the sky and gradually condensing into a majestic and strong body. Oh my God! Su Xiaoma and the others opened their eyes wide. Guanyu suddenly opened his eyes. His body was filled with even more violent flames. Splitting Mount Hua. Pangu splitting heaven. Uproar in heaven. Shua. Shua. Shua! Jun Changshao soared into the air and abruptly brandished his saber. The martial sage's soul, which was covered in flames, did the same. Violent flaming saber chi tore through the air and chopped down. Boom! Boom! Boom, blade marks appeared and the stone floor exploded. Shua! Jun Changshao floated down and stroked his beard. He said with satisfaction, after the green dragon crescent blade is embedded with the fire element, it's even more powerful than before. Patriarch. Li Qingyang walked over and looked at the shattered stones on the ground. He said with heartache, the stone floor of the training field is very expensive. After 3 slashes, you will need to spend at least 200 to 300,000 taels to repair it. Damn! Jun Changshao almost dropped the blade. He stared and said, so expensive. Chapter 563. As a special effect weapon, the Green Dragon Crescent Blade could also be embedded with attributes in the Spirit Accumulation Hall, and the number of Spirit Accumulations could be 5. Jun Changshao had already accumulated the Fire Spirit before, and today he finally had the chance to test it out. Needless to say, combined with his own fire attribute, it stimulated the soul of Wu Sheng, and his fighting strength soared. How much did it increase? Jun Changshao guessed that if he faced a peak martial king, he should be able to kill him directly. Facing Wu Huang, even if he couldn't defeat him, at least he wouldn't be too weak. The system said, the host can gather the other 4 types of spirit energy. In this way, the Green Dragon Crescent Blade will have all 5 elements, and its power might even increase. That's exactly what I was thinking. Jun Changshao kept the Green Dragon Crescent Blade, confirmed all the 4 types of spirit of the 5 elements that he could choose, and began to refine. Ahem. He needed some time. Patriarch. Su Xiaoma rubbed his hands and walked over, and laughed, when will we have such an awesome weapon? What's wrong? Jun Changshao said, you don't like the cold ray sword? I like it, I like it. Su Xiaoma grinned, if there is a stronger weapon to replace it, I will only have more hope for the future. Don't talk nonsense. Jun Changshao said, hurry up and kick your ball. Su Xiaoma left quickly. However, what he said made Jun Patriarch very concerned. He held his chin and said, the new disciples don't have any weapons yet, it's time for them to all be equipped with cold ray sword. No. At the very least, they have to start with cold ray sword. With the forging hall, it was easy to forge a large number of weapons in a short period of time, but the key was that there were no materials. I have to go outside and take a look. Jun Changshao muttered. The procurement hall had been purchasing ores, but it was still difficult to supply them in large quantities. If the disciples wanted to get all kinds of equipment, they had to go to dangerous places where materials were everywhere. Elder Jiang. Jun Changshao said, is there any dangerous forbidden area in southwest Yangzhou? Yes. Jiang Ye said, there is a forbidden place in Dingyang County called the Demon Ridge Valley. It is said to be very dangerous. It is normal for martial kings to die there. Really? Jun Changshao became interested. Even martial kings were in danger. This Demon Ridge Valley must be extremely terrifying. The more dangerous it was, the less people dared to go in. After accumulating for a long time, it must be a natural treasure trove. Let's go there and play. Jun Changshao made a decision. Jiang Ye was dumbfounded. Go there and have fun. My dear Sect Master, are you going for a walk in the spring? After Jun Changshao had an idea, he settled the matter and left Iron Bone Mountain. This time, he left peacefully because Li Luoqiu had a shared bracelet with him. If something unexpected happened, they could activate the Sect protecting array in time. According to Jiang Ye, the Demon Ridge Valley was one of the famous forbidden areas in the southwest Yangzhou. There were many demonic beasts living there. The so-called magical beasts were actually ferocious beasts. They were called demonic beasts because legend had it that there was a demonic sect in the valley 10,000 years ago. The mental cultivation method of demonic cultivators was very evil. They would also release demonic chi. Over time, it would infect the ferocious beasts and make them more irritable and ferocious. In Jun Changxiao's opinion, it must be a genetic change that caused the offspring to mutate. Can we find rare spirit beasts? Going to the Demon Ridge Valley to find resources was only one of the reasons. The other was to use the 2 sect leader balls and catch 2 contract beasts. Little Long Long also followed. Because its body had grown bigger, it did not lie on its master's shoulder. Instead, it sat on the head of the Hurricane Wolf King. Its 4 limbs clutched the fur so tightly that the Wolf King, who was running wildly, grimaced in pain. Big Wolf. Jun Changxiao said, "Go full speed." Roar! The Hurricane Wolf King raised its head and waved. The skill of wind riding was activated. The blue vortex under its feet suddenly expanded and instantly turned into a blue light that rushed out. Little Long Long was unlucky. The blade-like wind whistled and blew so hard that it could not open its eyes. The fiery red fur on its body was fluttering behind. Jun Patriarch was very calm. He faced the wind and sang a song in his heart. His hair was not messed up at all in the wind. Dingyang County was a 6th-class county that was comparable to Zhenyang County. It was very vast and had a large population. Martial masters and wuzong experts could be seen everywhere. A few days later, Jun Patriarch rode the Hurricane Wolf King into the boundary of Dingyang County. He chose a small path and arrived at the Demon Ridge Valley in the afternoon. The entrance of the valley was overgrown with weeds. It was obvious that few people had set foot there. On the mountain wall, there were 3 bloody words, Demon Ridge Valley. Below it, there was a line of small words, Forbidden Area of the Demonic Sect. Death to trespassers. Perhaps it was too long ago. The words were covered with moss, but still emitted a gloomy aura. Could this be left behind by the demonic sect? Jun Changxiao guessed. Whoosh! Whoosh! At this moment, in the slightly dark valley, a group of crows seemed to be alarmed. They flapped their wings and flew into the sky. Roar! The Hurricane Wolf King growled. Its eyes were filled with fear. A beast's sense of danger was definitely stronger than a human's. TSK, Little Long Long rolled its eyes and said, "So timid." Rustle. A little bug crawled out from the grass. It jumped onto its master's shoulder and said in shock, "Oh my God, you scared this baby to death." Jun Changxiao wished he could throw it down and stomp on it. Big Wolf. Wait outside. Little Long Long and I will go in and check it out. Roar. The Hurricane Wolf King responded. Jun Changxiao took Little Long Long and walked into the Demon Ridge Valley that no one had set foot in all year round. However, when he stepped in, faint ripples appeared at the entrance of the valley, as if he had triggered some kind of restriction. The Hurricane Wolf King outside noticed it. It wanted to howl to remind them, but it saw its master and Little Long Long disappear into thin air at the entrance of the valley. Buzz! At the same time, the words, "Demon Gates Forbidden Land, Trespassers Die," engraved on the wall suddenly flashed. The moss on it fell off one after another, and the gloomy aura it emitted became even stronger. Demon Ridge Valley, inside. Jun Changxiao had just walked in when he heard a series of angry roars, giving people the feeling that they had lost their rationality. Damn it! He was a little nervous. There won't be zombies here, right? The system said, the host has read too many doomsday novels. Schwa. Schwa. At this moment, a huge black shadow jumped down from the tree. Judging from its shape, it was obviously some kind of leopard beast. However, the scars on its face and body were completely rotten, and it emitted a disgusting stench. If Jun Changxiao didn't hold his breath in time, he was afraid that he would vomit the food he ate a few days ago. Wah! Little Long Long vomited. Damn it. Jun Changshao pinched his nose and pointed at the leopard beast with a ferocious face and flashing red eyes. There was no trace of life in it. And you said it's not a zombie. System, why am I always being slapped in the face? Not allowed. Not allowed. The system argued. This is not a zombie, this is a zombie beast. Fuck. Jun Changshao said, is there a difference? Roar, the disgusting leopard beast raised its head and roared, then pounced over with a stench. Little Long Long, I'll leave it to you. Jun Changshao said. Okay. Little Long Long jumped down. However, when he smelled the disgusting stench that assaulted his face, he vomited again with a wah sound. Chapter 564. Huff huff, scorching flames suddenly rose in the dark forest, and the zombie-like leopard beast was instantly engulfed and burned to ashes. Master. Little Long Long retracted the flames and vomited, this is disgusting. Jun Changshao glanced at the situation in the valley and muttered, I'm afraid this place isn't simple. Shwa. Shwa. At this time, another 6 or 7 leopard beasts jumped out from the dark. Their bodies were full of rotten scars and their faces were abnormally ferocious. They looked like soulless zombies. Get rid of them. Jun Changshao said. Huff huff, Little Long Long opened its mouth and spewed out scorching flames, killing all the leopard beasts. These disgusting beasts weren't too strong, but after being burned, there were still crystal cores scattered among them. Shwa. Jun Changshao waved his hand and pulled the crystal cores over. The crystal cores were dark inside, as if they were occupied by some kind of evil force. Is it demonic energy that's sealed here? Jun Changshao guessed. The system said, it's not a normal energy anyway. Jun Changshao kept it in the space ring and looked into the depths of the forest, saying, let's go in and take a look. It didn't matter at first glance, because in the complex forest, there were disgusting beasts that seemed to be soulless wandering around, and some were even killing each other with red eyes. If he wasn't sure that he was in a fantasy world, Jun Changshao would have suspected that he had transmigrated to a zombie-filled apocalypse. Master. Little Long Long said, what the hell is this place? The disgusting stench of decay in the air made it not dare to breathe too much. Most of the time, it could only hold its breath. Jun Changshao didn't say anything and continued to move forward. Soon, they arrived in front of a small stream. Water. It was also black. It stinks. Little Long Long hurriedly moved away and said, this water isn't clean either. Jun Changshao said, the entire valley seems to be controlled by some kind of virus. Is it natural or man-made? Thinking that there was once a demonic sect here, he was more inclined to believe that it was man-made. Shwa. He took out a ladle from the space ring and filled it with water. As a result, the water boiled crazily. Poison, the system said. Jun Changshao said, could it be that the ferocious beasts drank the water here and turned into zombies? Who at this moment, a huge rotting bear beast pounced from behind. Its body was much bigger than the mountainback bear. Jun Changshao raised his hand. His spiritual energy was condensed and spurted out in midair, blowing away the big guy that was charging at him. Its head even exploded on the spot. As a king of sword and martial arts, he was very adept at using spiritual energy. He didn't need to perform any martial arts at all. He could rely on spiritual energy to form shock waves in the void. This Demon Ridge Valley seems to be hiding some unknown secrets. Jun Changshao stood up, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. Decryption was the most interesting thing. However, what made Jun Patriarch speechless was that the beasts here had no thoughts of their own, and their bodies were rotten. They couldn't be used as contract beasts at all. This fellow had a requirement for contracted beasts. They had to be good-looking. The dark inner part of the Demon Ridge Valley was very deep. Those disgusting ferocious beasts were like ghosts that had lost their minds, wandering back and forth in the woods. Occasionally, they would find humans and charge at them ferociously. Unfortunately, their strength was too low. Before they could get close, they were engulfed by little Longlong's flames. As they went deeper and deeper, the number of disgusting ferocious beasts decreased. However, their strength increased layer by layer. When they entered 5 to 6 miles, there were even beasts that were one rank higher. Boom! Cold spiritual energy burst out and directly killed a high-ranked ferocious beast that looked like a lion. Jun Changshao took out the black crystal core and shook his head. If it's in its normal form, it's suitable to be my contract beast. Master. At this moment, little Long Long stared ahead and said, "What's that?" Jun Changshao looked up. There were many damaged buildings in front of him. They were covered with moss and vines, emitting a gloomy and ancient aura. The only wall that wasn't eroded had words that seemed to be written with blood. The content was, "As long as heaven and earth exist, the demonic path will exist forever." There should be a demonic sect force here. Jun Changshao walked over and looked at these damaged buildings. It felt more like a sentry post. He spread his spiritual senses. There were scattered human skeletons on the grass. They were all black and very similar to the stream he saw earlier. Jun Changshao held his chin and said, "Could it be that these skeletons drank the poisonous water when they were alive?" "Master." Little Long Long jumped to a damaged building and stared down. "There's a weapon here." Jun Changshao walked over. A corpse leaned against the corner of the wall. There was a sword stuck in the ribs. It seemed to be very old and was already rusted. Jun Changshao closed his eyes. He seemed to have returned to 10,000 years ago in an instant. As a bystander, he witnessed a group of martial artists attacking and killing the stronghold. Swoosh! He opened his eyes and said, "Could it be people from the decent sects who joined forces to attack the Demon Ridge Valley?" The sky gradually darkened. Jun Changshao didn't continue on his journey. Instead, he temporarily settled down in the damaged ruins. At night, the cold wind whistled, and the gloomy atmosphere became stronger. Little Long Long was a little scared and subconsciously leaned toward its master. Jun Changshao wrapped the sword with his spiritual energy. Judging from the casting style and the outline of the patterns, he said, "This can be considered an antique." Roar! Roar! At this moment, a series of crazy roars came from the depths of the forest, shaking the surrounding leaves. Jun Changshao looked up and found that in the starry sky in front of him, there was a flash of a formation boundary. "Let's go." He grabbed little Long Long and walked toward the dark forest. Soon, Jun Changshao came to a larger ruin. There were even more human skeletons scattered around. There were even 50 to 60 skeletons in one area. The wall also had the words, "As long as heaven and earth exist, the demonic path will exist forever." The light rose from here. Jun Changshao fully opened his spiritual senses and covered the surrounding 5 to 6 miles. He didn't see anything strange. Wait! At this moment, he found that the empty space in front of him was engraved with strange and complicated lines. There was also a skull symbol in the central area. Jun Changshao walked over and squatted in front of the lines. He whispered, "It should have just been drawn. Here." He looked around and said with certainty, "There's someone else." Whoosh! At this moment, a stream of light flew over from the darkness. Pa! Jun Changshao raised his hand and caught the hidden weapon. He sneered, "You think you can hurt me like this? You're too naive." He opened his palm and found that his skin had turned purple-black and was constantly expanding. The hidden weapon was poisonous. Ha ha ha. A shadow shrouded in a black robe walked out from behind the ruined building and laughed eerily. "Didn't anyone tell you that you can't casually catch hidden weapons with your hands? Damn it." Jun Changshao's face suddenly became ferocious. His entire right palm had turned purple-black, showing that the poison was quite strong. Friend. The black-robed man laughed strangely. Don't try to use spiritual energy to force the poison out. Otherwise, you'll only die faster. Plop. Jun Changshao directly collapsed on the ground, cold sweat seeping out of his forehead. The black-robed man walked over and laughed eerily. You dare to enter the Demon Ridge Valley. You're quite brave. Just in time. He stopped in front of Jun Changshao and gently took off his black robe, revealing a ferocious face. He said, I still lack blood for sacrifice. I'll use yours. Swoosh. Jun Changshao stood up and clasped his poisoned right hand on the man's neck. The ferocious expression on his face relaxed. He laughed. Didn't anyone tell you not to get close to your opponent? You. The black-robed man was shocked. You're not poisoned. Chapter 565. Jun Changshao was poisoned. However, the purple-black palm gradually returned to normal, as if it had been dissolved by some kind of power. What kind of power? The detoxification power of the detoxification pill. After entering the Demon Ridge Valley and seeing the black stream, Jun Changshao was afraid that there would be poisonous miasma in the forest, so he took a pill very cautiously. He didn't encounter any miasma, but he was plotted against by others, so the effect of the detoxification pill was reflected. It was very strong. The poison was directly dissolved as soon as it spread. Therefore, the pain Jun Changshao showed and the paralysis on the ground was nothing more than an act. What a bastard! The black-robed man who was bound opened his eyes wide in disbelief. The poison smeared on the hidden weapon was so strong that even a martial king couldn't dissolve it. How could he not be poisoned? Boy! Jun Changshao pulled him over and directly sealed his meridians. He smiled and said, the pattern on the ground should be drawn by you, right? The black-robed man didn't speak. Swish! Jun Changshao directly threw him to the ground, raised his fist and said, you must answer my question. Boom! Boom! After a round of crazy bombardment, the black-robed man was immediately beaten to a pulp, but he didn't say anything from the beginning to the end. It seemed that he was a persevering young man. Still not speaking. Jun Changshao raised his fist again. The black-robed man endured the pain and still didn't say a word. Bang! Jun Changshao threw a punch and directly knocked him out. Master! Little Long Long jumped over from afar and said, I'll burn him to ashes. Jun Changshao said, this boy must have a secret. As he spoke, he took the black-robed man's space ring and used his spiritual thoughts to forcibly break the mark left by the other party and merge into it. This was an ordinary space ring. The space capacity was not large, but there were many historical records and secret books in it. Evil Sect's mental cultivation method. Jun Changshao took out a book and looked at it. It seems a little different. Is it a demonic sect's mental cultivation method? He flipped through the historical records and found that the contents were all related to the demonic sect, so he said with certainty, this boy is definitely a demonic cultivator. Why did he set up a strange pattern here? What do you mean by sacrifice? Jun Changshao felt a little confused. The only explanation he could think of was the black-robed man. However, he seemed to have a backbone. Violence might not be able to make him confess. Got it. Jun Changshao opened the purchase store, selected the surrender order, and spent 200 contribution points to purchase it. This item was refreshed together with the surrender token. The former could only be purchased once, while the surrender token could be purchased once every 3 months. However, there was a limit of 5 times in total. Brat. Jun Changshao's shoulders shook as he let out a strange laugh. I'd like to see how much backbone you have. My head hurts. The black-robed man woke up from his coma. Pain instantly spread from his whole body to his sea of consciousness. His face suddenly became ferocious. He wanted to move, but found that his whole body was entangled by the vines, and he couldn't move at all. He's awake. Jun Changshao sat on a rock nearby with one leg resting on top of it. Because his hair was never messed up, he looked even more handsome. The black-robed man said angrily, "If you want to kill me, then kill me. If you want to cut me, then cut me. Why torture me?" Jun Changshao jumped down, squatted in front of him, and said, "As long as you answer my questions honestly, there is still hope for you to live. I don't know anything, and I won't say anything." The black-robed man's tone was firm, as if he could kill or cut him up as he pleased. He had a lot of backbone. Jun Changshao shook his head, raised the surrender order, and said, "Surrender. Surrender." The black-robed man laughed coldly. Was this guy testing his determination? Did he think that he would admit defeat with just a few words? Swoosh! Suddenly, a white light flew out from the token and directly poured into the black-robed man's forehead. The sound of "surrender, surrender" echoed in his ears, and an irresistible force forcefully occupied his sea of consciousness. At that moment, the black-robed man felt as if his soul had been forcefully stripped away. Although his thoughts were still there, his entire body seemed to be out of control as he said with difficulty, "Servant Mo Shang greets master." What's going on? Why can't I control myself? Jun Changshao sat on the rock, and said, "You are a demonic cultivator." Mo Shang said, reporting to master, "I am half a demonic cultivator." Half? Jun Changshao said, "What do you mean?" Under the control of the power of surrender, although Mo Shang did not want to say it, he could only tell him everything. This person was originally a very ordinary martial cultivator. He was unwilling to cultivate step by step, and always thought about how to break through his cultivation as soon as possible. To put it bluntly, it was just that he liked to daydream. Later on, when Mo Shang heard about the evil cultivators, he resolutely stepped onto a path of no return. His luck was good. He was valued by a 9 Paths evil sect and accepted as a disciple. In the end, after just half a year of entering the sect had a conflict with other forces and ended up being completely annihilated. Mo Shang was lucky enough to survive, and then turned to another evil sect. Before he could settle down, the sect was destroyed by an irresistible force. In 3 years, he went to the east and west, but none of the evil sects could last long. They were either destroyed by their enemies or disintegrated. You're still a jinx. Jun Changshao said. Mo Shang said, in the last evil sect, I accidentally found a piece of metal that had a lot of history. After studying it, I found that there was a big secret hidden inside. Jun Changshao listened quietly. Mo Shang paused for a moment and said, it turns out that the strange symbols recorded on the metal piece are actually a type of demonic language, and also a special chant. Then, I began to try to cultivate. You succeeded. Half of it. Why are you here, setting up a special pattern? This question was very important. Mo Shang did not want to say it at all, but he could not control his mouth and blurted it all out. The words on the metal piece had been verified and deciphered by him. There was a very important matter recorded inside. 10,000 years ago, the Demon Ridge Valley was besieged by the 10 great third-rate sections. The Valley Master knew that he could not escape this calamity, so he joined forces with his disciples and used his blood essence as a guide to execute the supreme secret technique of the demonic sect. He forcefully opened up a space and sealed the demonic sect's cultivation techniques and treasures inside. The pattern you set up is used to unlock the seal. Jun Changshao said. Yes. Mo Shang said. Can it be unlocked? Jun Changshao's eyes lit up. The demonic sect from 10,000 years ago had to be besieged by the 10 great third-rate sections. They must be very powerful. If they could unlock the seal, there would be countless treasures and martial arts techniques inside. Mo Shang shook his head and said, I tried many times, but I did not succeed. I guessed that I might need blood essence as a guide to unlock the seal. Take out the metal piece. Jun Changshao said. Mo Shang's face was ferocious, as if he was fighting against the power of summoning. In the end, he still failed. He took out the metal piece from the most hidden place. After handing it over, Jun Changxiao's spiritual sense could clearly detect his presence. He suddenly realized, so this thing has the function of blocking spiritual sense. No wonder I didn't notice you just now. Spiritual sense? Mo Shang's face changed and he said in shock, Master is a martial king? Chapter 566. The iron piece was the size of a palm and there were many strange symbols on it. There was also a complicated pattern that was very similar to the one on the ground. The rough object exuded an ancient and gloomy aura. It must have a long history. Because of the similar aura and environment, the spiritual senses could not capture Mo Shang's existence. Therefore, if it was in a normal area, it would be difficult to avoid the spiritual senses. Only in the Demon Ridge Valley could it be hidden well. Can you break the seal with blood essence? Jun Changshao asked. Mo Shang said, this is my guess. As for whether it will work or not, I'm not sure. After obtaining the iron piece and deciphering the words on it, he came to the Demon Ridge Valley many times and tried many times, but he did not succeed. After thinking about it carefully, he realized that the Demon Ridge Valley Master and his disciples used their blood essence to open up the space. Would they also need blood essence to unlock the seal? The more he thought about it, the more likely it was. This time, he planned to try it with his blood essence. However, as soon as he finished setting up the pattern, someone appeared and he had to stop temporarily. What are you waiting for? Jun Changshao urged, quickly use your blood essence to unlock the seal. Lord, whose blood should I use? Of course it's yours. Do you still need to ask? The corners of Mo Shang's mouth twitched. Blood essence determined a martial cultivator's health and lifespan. It was difficult to make up for any consumption. Shush! Jun Changshao directly dragged him to the pattern just now and said, hurry up and force the blood essence out. Mo Shang could not resist his master's order. He could only take out a dagger, cut his finger, and force the blood essence out. Blood essence was a little thicker than normal blood. It contained the aura of lifespan. One drop less would reduce one's lifespan by several years. Mo Shang's heart ached. Drip. A drop of blood essence fell and splashed on the outlined pattern. But the moment the blood essence came into contact with the pattern, it began to flicker and a light barrier rose into the sky. It felt as if a signal gun was fired on the battlefield. As expected. Mo Shang said excitedly, blood essence is needed to unlock the seal. Roar! Roar! At this moment, there was a burst of angry roars outside the ruins. The zombie beasts wandering in the forest seemed to be controlled by some force and they rushed toward the red light. How many? A lot. The ruins were surrounded by zombie beasts. There were low-leveled ones and high-level ones. There were about 5,000 to 6,000 of them, and there were even more roaring ones coming from further away. Boom! Boom! The earth trembled violently as a sinister aura swept over. This, Mo Shang was so scared that his face turned green. The only reason why he was able to enter the Demon Ridge Valley and reach this place was due to the metal plate's concealment ability. Now that it had been taken away and there were so many frenzied beasts charging toward him, he was definitely in danger. What was worse was, after his blood essence fused with the pattern, his body seemed to be controlled by some kind of power, rendering him unable to move at all. Mo Shang knew that he must have touched the sealed space and was in the process of breaking it. He broke down and said, Master, I am using my body as a medium for the sealed space. I must not be disturbed by external forces. Otherwise, all my efforts will be for naught. Be at ease as your medium. Jun Changshao waved his hand and the green dragon crescent blade appeared out of thin air. Like a god of war, he said, leave this to me. Hoo hoo. Little Long Long breathed out flames from his mouth, and his eyes were filled with fighting spirit. At this moment, looking down from the sky, 2 people and 1 beast could be seen in the ruins. They were surrounded by frenzied zombie beasts, charging toward them like a surging flood. Ding! Side mission triggered. Pulling open the interface, the mission was protect Mo Shang and successfully open the independent space that had been sealed for 10,000 years, elite mission. June Patriarch's eyes lit up instantly. It was not difficult to tell from the mission that activating the blood essence could really open the sealed space. The system muttered, "This mission is a complete spoiler." Shush! Shush! At this moment, dozens of rotting wolf beasts were the first to pounce on them. The stench they brought with them was nauseating. Spirit armor. Jun Changxiao's entire body was instantly covered by a thick armor. It was a real armored warrior. He activated this defensive technique not because he was worried that he could not kill the zombie beasts, but because he was afraid that he would be splashed with dirt. Shush! The green dragon crescent blade suddenly cut through the void, forming a flaming blade aura that directly split the attacking wolf beast into 2. The black blood that spilled out was also instantly evaporated. Ow woo! Ow woo! At this moment, another large group of wolf beasts rushed over from the other side. There were at least a few hundred of them. Some ran on the ground while some jumped over the walls. Fire rain. Little Long Long's crimson fur stood on end like a porcupine. Immediately after, streaks of fiery light shot toward the pack of wolves like missiles. Boom! Boom! Flames soared into the sky, and heat waves whistled. The hundreds of zombie beasts that rushed over were instantly blasted into a bloody mess. Oh my God, Mo Shang, who was breaking the seal, widened his eyes. He did not expect that this lizard-like little fellow's strength would be so terrifying. Moreover, it could actually speak. It was definitely a spirit beast comparable to a martial king. Whoosh! At this moment, the flaming blade aura once again appeared in his field of vision, and the dozen or so zombie beasts that rushed towards Mo Shang from behind were directly obliterated. Shwa! Little Long Long jumped to a high point and locked onto a large number of zombie beasts that were attacking from a certain direction. Its hair stood up again as it continuously released the beginner-level fire rain technique. He had just used the beast technique and was already exhausted after using it 3 times. Now that he had awakened for the 2nd time, he could still use it with ease after using it many times. The flaming blade aura and fiery bullets were frequently released in the ruins, and the irrational zombie beasts came to their deaths like moths to a flame. However, the red flowing light barrier that was similar to a signal flare was still in midair, and more zombie beasts were still rushing over. In just over 10 minutes, Jun Changxiao and Little Long Long killed 5,000 to 6,000 zombie beasts, but the zombie beasts that came from all directions were still endless like a tide. Master, I'm a little tired. Little Long Long showed signs of fatigue after using the fearless fire rain technique. Shua Jun Changxiao waved his blade and killed dozens of zombie beasts that rushed over, frowning, "You haven't broken the seal yet?" "Soon." Mo Shang's face was slightly ferocious. At this moment, his soul seemed to have merged into the void and was fiercely colliding with an invisible door. This was extremely exhausting, and his entire body was already drenched in sweat. Roar! Roar! More and more zombie beasts were still rushing over. In the ruins, those that died from the bombardment of fireballs and blades were almost piled up into a small mountain. Jun Changxiao retracted the green dragon crescent blade and held up the 2 AK-47s, saying, "I don't believe that we can't kill them all." Tut 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 tut! Bullets shot out wildly, and the muzzle shot out flames. The zombie beasts that rushed over from all directions were either pierced in the head or the chest. They fell to the ground one after another, unable to get close to the area of the pattern. Ka! The bullets ran out and quickly reloaded. Tut tut tut! Another round of wild fire. Buzz! At this moment, there was a strange energy fluctuation behind him, and he heard Mo Shang excitedly say, "The seal has been opened." Jun Changshao swept with his spiritual sense and saw that the space above the pattern suddenly cracked open a thin crack, and then gradually expanded, finally forming an arc-shaped energy circle. The red flowing light barrier that shot into the sky suddenly dissipated, and the crazy zombie beasts gradually calmed down and no longer rushed to the ruins. Plop! Little Long Long collapsed on the ground and said, "It's finally over." Jun Changshao retracted the AK-47, and his spiritual power spread out, putting all the scattered black crystal cores into the spatial ring, and said, let's go in." Mo Shang said warily, "Master, this independent space was opened by the Valley Master of the Demon Ridge Valley. There may be danger inside. Even if there are mountains of knives and seas of fire inside, we have to go in." Jun Changshao picked up Little Long Long and dragged him to the energy circle. Chapter 567. Ding! Side mission completed. Obtained 3,000 contribution points. Ding! Contribution points, 1300020000. Ding! Contribution points overflow. When Mo Shang broke the seal and the zombie beasts stopped attacking, the side mission was successfully completed. With the continuous improvement of the Sect's construction, the rewards of the side missions, especially elite missions like this, had obviously increased significantly. Jun Changshao did not think about spending the extra contribution points for the time being. He held Little Long Long in one hand and Mo Shang in the other as they jumped toward the energy mass. The two of them and the beast immediately merged into it. Phew, the cold wind blew. The ruins were filled with zombie beasts that had been killed. The scene was extremely disgusting. In just over 20 minutes, Jun Changshao and Little Long Long had killed close to 10,000 zombies. There was no lack of high-ranked ones among them. It was really a bit valiant. It was a pity that there was no audience. Otherwise, it would be shocking. Whoosh! Jun Changshao came in from the entrance. His feet landed on the ground, creating faint ripples as if he was stepping on water. This was an independent space. There was no wind and no sound. The environment was dark and the atmosphere was strange and oppressive. Mo Shang was a little scared and subconsciously hid behind Jun Changshao. Whoosh! In the seemingly endless space ahead, a few strange blue flames appeared, emitting an extremely gloomy aura. Gradually, the blue flames dispelled the darkness and the space became slightly brighter. A building similar to an altar appeared in their field of vision. There were various decorations hanging on the shelves around. They were either skulls or hand bones. It looked very frightening. Jun Patriarch, who had received 9 years of compulsory education, could not help but feel a little scared. He thought to himself, there won't be ghosts here, right? Whoosh whoosh! Suddenly, the blue flames burned even more fiercely. A line of words appeared above the altar. Heaven and earth shall not be destroyed, diabolism shall exist forever. The words were very large, enough to occupy half of the space. The words were strong and powerful, like iron and silver hooks. Throwing away the gloomy aura, Jun Changshao concluded that the person who left this line of words must be a heroic person who could shake the mountains and rivers. Master! Little Long Long said, there's a coffin on the platform. Jun Changshao saw it too. It was made of stone and engraved with words that he could not understand. This is the demon sect's language. Mo Shang said. Jun Changshao asked, can you translate it? Mo Shang said, it's a little far. I need to go in and take a look. Let's go. Jun Changshao dragged him towards the altar. Speaking of which, it was strange. It looked like it was close at hand, but in the end, it took him a few hundred steps to stop in front of the stairs. The altar wasn't very tall. There were only a dozen or so steps. Jun Changshao walked up and could clearly feel that the gloomy aura was getting thicker. Mo Shang began to look at the demon gate's words at a close distance. He exclaimed, "Master, this is the coffin of the last valley master of the Demon Ridge Valley from 10,000 years ago." Really? Jun Changshao was rather surprised. Mo Shang continued to look at the words on the coffin and said excitedly, "The demonic sect's cultivation technique and treasure vault are all hidden here." Jun Changshao looked around and said, "Why is there nothing here?" Mo Shang did not say anything and continued to decipher the words. Suddenly, his expression changed and he said, "It says that if one wants to inherit everything in the Demon Ridge Valley, he must go through 3 tests. 3 tests? Jun Changshao rubbed his chin and said with a smile, "It seems a little interesting." The corner of Mo Shang's mouth twitched. The first test is to endure the burning of the endless demonic fire. He, who had studied the demonic sects, had heard of the endless demonic fire. It was an extremely terrifying flame in the demonic Tao. Just a little bit of it would devour one's soul, causing one to be in so much pain that one would wish they were dead. Swoosh! Not far below the altar, an even more intense blue fire appeared out of thin air. "Master," Mo Shang said, "this is the endless demonic fire. One must endure it for an hour to pass the test." "Go on," Jun Changshao said. "Ah." Mo Shang said with a bitter face, "Master, with my bit of cultivation, I'll definitely be burned to ashes if I go in." "I'll do it." Little Dragon crawled out of his embrace and merged into the blue fire. Jun Changshao said, "Little Dragon is fire type. It should be able to withstand this so-called endless demonic fire." The corner of Mo Shang's mouth twitched. "Master, although the endless demonic fire is also a branch of fire type, its function is to burn the soul. A ferocious beast definitely won't be able to withstand it." Whoosh! At that moment, scorching red flames spewed out as if they had turned into a fire net, completely enveloping the endless demonic fire. "Oh my God!" Mo Shang's eyes widened. The red flames were still suppressing the demonic fire. An hour later, it self-destructed. Little Dragon swaggered out and said in disappointment, "I thought it was very powerful. I didn't expect it to be so weak." It was not that the demonic fire was too weak, but that its flames were too strong and could not penetrate the soul at all. "What's the second test?" Jun Changshao asked. Mo Shang read the words carefully and said, "Defeat 100 Demon Ridge Valley Outer Sect disciples." "What?" Jun Changshao said in shock, "Hasn't this Demon Ridge Valley been destroyed?" "Where can I find the Demon Ridge Valley disciples?" Buzz! Buzz! At that moment, the space suddenly rippled. Immediately, martial artists in black appeared, with the words Demon Ridge engraved on their chests. There were exactly 100 of them. Although they were lined up neatly, their hair was messy, and their bodies were covered in wounds as if they had just experienced a fierce battle of life and death. "Master!" Demon Ridge said in horror, Are they the Demon Ridge Valley disciples?" If Jun Changshao did not care about his identity as the patriarch, he would definitely have screamed on the spot, "Oh my God, I've seen ghosts." The Demon Ridge Valley had been destroyed for 10,000 years. Now, there were so many disciples in the independent space, which was really creepy. The system said, they should be shadows formed by the illusion realm, not real entities. At that moment, the 100 Demon Ridge Valley disciples raised their heads together, revealing their red eyes, which were very similar to the zombie beasts outside. Whoosh! The leading disciple moved first. Whoosh! Whoosh! The other Demon Ridge Valley disciples also walked over quickly. For a moment, the dark chi burst out in the space, which was even more eerie and terrifying. The system analyzed, these shadows are all Wuzong at the peak. What? Jun Changshao opened his eyes wide. The outer sect disciples had the strength of Wuzong at the peak. How powerful was the Demon Ridge Valley 10,000 years ago? Bang! Jun Changshao jumped down from the altar and punched the chests of the two disciples who rushed over with spiritual energy. They were instantly sent flying. It was very powerful. It was hard to imagine that they were shadows formed by the illusion realm. Flop. Flop. The two disciples of the Demon Ridge Valley fell to the ground, but their bodies were intact. Jun Changshao was shocked, their physical strength is so high. Whoosh. While speaking, his right fist swept to the side like a hammer. It directly hit the attacking shadow and blasted it into a cloud of black gas. Jun Changshao's lips twitched slightly. He had used 1.5 million kilograms of strength to smash the outer sect disciples of the Demon Ridge Valley. No wonder the big forces who considered themselves as decent sects joined hands to issue the demon-slaying order. If such a horrible existence was not restrained and allowed to grow, the falling star continent would have been controlled by the demon sect. Boom! Boom! While thinking, Jun Changshao rushed into the outer sect disciples of the Demon Ridge Valley with cloud-crossing steps, waving his fierce and violent fists constantly. In an instant, more than 10 shadows were killed on the spot. Whoosh! Jun Changshao completely let go of his hands. His spiritual energy burst out in the crowd. Wherever it passed, the outer sect disciples of the Demon Ridge Valley were all killed. They were no match for him at all. What a joke! Third-class king of sword and warrior. Chapter 568. After killing 100 Devil Ridge Valley disciples, Jun Changshao asked, "Is the third test for me to fight an inner disciple?" "No." Mo Shang said. "Fight the 4 guardians of the Demon Ridge Valley," Mo Shang said. Jun Changshao was stunned. Wasn't it the standard routine to fight the inner disciples after fighting the outer disciples? Why did it suddenly change to the guardians? The outer disciples of the Demon Ridge Valley were already so powerful. The guardians must be even more powerful. "Master," Mo Shang said, "the guardians of the Demon Ridge Valley are equivalent to the elders of the sect." Jun Changshao was speechless. Fighting the outer disciples directly and fighting the elders was completely out of the ordinary. Buzz! Buzz! The space rippled again. 4 elders in black robes appeared, exuding an even stronger dark aura. Although the system hadn't analyzed their strength, Jun Changshao could tell that they were not ordinary martial kings according to their aura. Whoosh! Whoosh! The 4 guardians of the Demon Ridge Valley raised their heads and showed their expressionless faces. Their eyes were still shining with red light. The system said, "They are Wu Huang." Damn it! Jun Changshao was on the verge of collapse. The third trial. Does it need to be so difficult? Although he was the powerful Sword King and Martial King, he would definitely have a weak kidney when facing 4 martial emperors. Whoosh! Whoosh! The 4 guardians of the Demon Ridge Valley rushed over with strange footwork. They were so fast that they couldn't be seen clearly. Oh no! Boom! 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 4 explosions were heard. Jun Changshao flew out like a cannonball. From the slow-motion replay, we could see that the 4 guardians of the Demon Ridge Valley gathered dark energy and attacked directly. 2 hit his chest and back, and 2 hit his left and right face. Under the pincer attack of the 4 forces, Sect Master Jun spun 360 degrees in the air before he was sent flying in a magnificent explosion. He was defeated. Everyone stood up and applauded. Damn it! Jun Changshao stood up from the ground and waved his hand, summoning the green dragon crescent blade. He said angrily, "Don't hit people in the face. Don't you know this rule?" Although he had been punched 4 times, his body was very resistant. He only felt some pain, but it was not a big deal. His hair was not messed up, as if it was drawn with a brush. Shwa! Shwa! The 4 protectors of the Demon Ridge Valley rushed over again. They were as fast as ever. June Patriarch, who was experienced, released his spiritual thoughts and captured their movements. He raised his saber with both hands and shouted, "Let's have a good fight." Bang! Bang! Boom, plop. Jun Changshao once again threw his saber to the ground far away. He said frantically, "I can't defeat him at all." He could still consider Wu Huang. With 4 Wu Huangs attacking at the same time, they would definitely be crushed. Do not panic, do not panic. With the trump card in hand, the world is mine. Jun Changshao stood up and said with a cold gaze, "Little Long Long, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and transform." All right then. This guy's trump card turned out to be his contract beast. Yes, master. Shua. Little Long Long jumped over and stood in front of Jun Changshao. Whoosh flames that were dozens of feet high spewed out, causing the surrounding temperature to rise instantly. With the accompaniment of hot-blooded background music, Little Long Long's childlike head appeared from the flames. Mo Shang, who was on the altar, opened his mouth in shock. Damn it! Why did a child's head appear? Where is that lizard? Shua! Little Long Long stepped out, and its muscular body appeared in his field of vision. Mo Shang's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He said in shock, "Demon! Demon! Shua!" Little Long Long raised its sharp claws and pointed at the 4 protectors of the Demon Ridge Valley. It said in a cold voice, "Bullying master is bullying me." Shua! As soon as it finished speaking, the flames flickered. It instantly approached one of the protectors and punched with its right fist. Boom, flames erupted, and heat waves swept across. The protector who was attacked was directly sent flying like a cannonball. The other 3 protectors locked their eyes on Little Long Long and immediately launched the coldest attacks. Bang! 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 For a moment, fist shadows intertwined, and black air waves spread. Little Long Long dragged Hu Guang and the 3 Demon Ridge Valley Guardians. Sometimes, they would move around, and sometimes, they would move around. It was an exciting battle. Phew! Jun Changshao heaved a long sigh of relief. Judging from the current situation, although these protectors were strong, they could not do anything to Little Long Long. Fortunately, he brought it here. Otherwise, it would be a dead end today. Boom! Boom! Little Long Long dragged the flames and bombarded them wildly, directly sending all 3 protectors of the Demon Ridge Valley flying. Whoosh! It raised its palm, and the scorching flames quickly condensed. It said coldly, "Go to hell." Bang! Flames spewed out, carrying a terrifying explosive force, directly blasting one of the protectors into black gas. Boom! 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 3 more balls of flames spewed out, and the other 3 protectors of the Demon Ridge Valley were directly obliterated. It had to be said. Little Long Long, who had activated its second combat form, was really powerful. Jun Changshao put his hands on his waist and said, "Who else is not convinced?" The system was speechless. The contract beast is so strong. Is the host hurt? Hurt my ass. Jun Changshao said, "I hatched and raised Little Long Long. Its strength is equivalent to my strength." This made the system speechless. Jun Changshao looked at Mo Shang and said, "I've passed all 3 tests. Where's the treasure?" Buzz! Buzz! As soon as he finished speaking, the entire space suddenly trembled, as if there was a possibility of collapse. Crack! Suddenly, there was a tearing sound. Jun Changshao looked back and saw that the space seemed to be directly torn apart by some force, and a tightly shut door appeared. "Master!" Mo Shang said excitedly, "This may be the entrance to the treasure." "Is that so?" Jun Changshao walked over. Creak! Just as he stopped in front of him, the the door opened by itself. Jun Changshao opened his mouth and said, "Oh my God!" Mo Shang, who was on the altar, was also dumbfounded. From the opening of the door, the two of them saw mountains of gold. Treasure. It was really a treasure. If it was an ordinary person, they would definitely faint from happiness. But Jun Changshao was someone who treated money like dirt. After a short shock, he returned to normal. Whoosh! He stepped in. The space inside the door was not bad. In addition to the mountain of gold and silver treasures, there were many ancient bookshelves with many strange secret manuals on them. Mo Shang followed in, glanced at the bookshelves casually, and said excitedly, "Master, these are all demon sect martial arts." Jun Changshao ignored him and locked his gaze at the back. There was a big chair there, and a person in black armor sat on it. No. To be precise, it was a skeleton. Jun Changshao walked over and carefully looked at the skeleton in armor, murmuring, "It should have been dead for a long time. I am the 30th Valley Master of the Demon Ridge Valley. Today, you have entered this place, and you are fated to obtain the treasure of the Demon Ridge Valley. Show the might of the Demon Ridge Valley and kill all those who deceive the world." A deep voice suddenly sounded in the space, revealing a majestic aura. Mo Shang seemed to be infected, and his expression was extremely solemn. "I will follow the senior's words and show the might of the Demon Ridge Valley. Kill all those who deceive the world." Crack! The skeleton sitting on the chair suddenly shattered and turned into dust, but the armor remained the same as before, as if someone was still wearing it and supporting it. Swoosh! The gold, silver, jewelry, secret manuals, and the armor stored here suddenly disappeared into thin air. After putting away the things, Jun Changshao looked at Mo Shang and said lightly, "Wash up and sleep." Mo Shang's mouth twitched. He was half a demon cultivator. If he inherited the inheritance of the Demon Ridge Valley, it was not impossible for him to rise against the trend in the future. But Jun Changshao followed in, so this great opportunity that allowed the protagonist to reach the peak of life was destined to not belong to him. How could he directly appoint him as the Valley Master? "You're not happy," Jun Changshao said, "Bring it over then." "Gladly, gladly." Mo Shang hurriedly kept the token properly. Then, he knelt down in front of the stone coffin and said with a solemn expression, "Mo Shang will succeed to be the 31st Valley Master of the Demon Ridge Valley from today onwards. I will definitely revive the demon sect in the future." An ancient demonic sect that had been destroyed for tens of thousands of years welcomed a new Valley Master today. Although it was very informal and no sect members witnessed it. Shwa! Jun Changshao kept the coffin in his space ring. He knew that the 30th Valley Master had stored the memorial tablets of his ancestors and himself in an independent space. He must have hoped that a fated person would inherit it so that the Demon Ridge Valley could continue to exist. Although it had been tens of thousands of years and the demon sect was almost extinct, he had taken all of them. When he had the ability in the future, he would naturally make the Demon Ridge Valley reappear in the underworld. Let's go. Shwa! Shwa! 2 people and 1 beast walked out of the independent space. As soon as they stabilized their bodies, the pattern under their feet gradually dimmed. The energy cluster in mid-air also disappeared. The secret that had existed for tens of thousands of years had completed its historical mission with the arrival of outsiders. It was strange. The gloomy aura in the ruins began to fade. The eyes of the beast in the distance became clear. Its rotten body gradually healed. Although it was still wild, it seemed to have regained its consciousness. Even the black water in the distant stream had become so clear that the bottom could be seen. Let's go, Jun Changshao said. Mo Shang said, Master, where are we going? Sect of all times, Jun Changshao said. Sect of all times? Mo Shang was stunned and said in surprise, that sect with the potential to be in the top 3? Although this guy had been concentrating on studying the demon path, he still had some understanding of the most popular topics outside. Wait. He had referred to himself as this lord earlier. Mo Shang's expression changed. He said in surprise, Master, are you the patriarch of the sect of all times, Jun Changshao? That's right, Jun Changshao said. Mo Shang's eyes widened. He finally understood why someone of his age had the strength of a martial king. Jun Changshao said, Boy, I have to say that you're very lucky. The sect of all times lacks nothing but demon cultivators. I plan to take you in. Do you want to join? He took away the opportunity that belonged to him and still had the cheek to say that he was lucky. Bitch, bitch. Mo Shang hurriedly said, as long as Master doesn't mind, I'm willing to join the sect of all times. Who in the southwest Yangzhou didn't know that the sect of all times had great potential? If he could join such a sect, his future would definitely be limitless. It's just that, Mo Shang suddenly became extremely depressed. He said, I'm a jinx. If I join the sect of all times, I'll bring disaster to Master. Jun Changshao said, if you can say that, it means that you're not a bad person. Not to mention a jinx, even if you're a calamity god, I'll definitely take you in. Mo Shang was touched. He cupped his hands and said, Thank you, Master, for taking me in. Just like that. He, who had just succeeded as the 31st Valley Master of the Demon Ridge Valley, became a disciple of the sect of all times. In fact, Jun Changshao took Mo Shang in because of Yao Menjing. The little girl had awakened the Khanate demon body and was the most orthodox demon cultivator. Finding a kindred spirit might be helpful for her cultivation. More importantly, Jun Changshao didn't care about the so-called righteous and demonic at all. In his opinion, demons weren't necessarily bad, and righteous weren't necessarily good because there were too many deceiving people in this world. Roar! Suddenly, there was a deafening roar. Jun Changxiao's spiritual senses instantly captured that in the deepest part of the Demon Ridge Valley, a huge ferocious beast gradually stood up and exuded a strong aura. From the looks of it, this wasn't a land beast, but a flying beast covered in black feathers. Whoosh! The behemoth that had just stood up spread its arms. No, its wings. Then it suddenly waved, stirring up a gust of wind, and its body that weighed dozens of tons flew up. Mo Shang saw it clearly and exclaimed, This is the Demon Ridge Black Eagle. The system said, Middle-grade spirit beast. Jun Changxiao's eyes burned. Middle-grade spirit beast, that was comparable to Wu Huang. Little Long Long. Jun Changxiao pointed at the Demon Ridge Black Eagle that was about to fly up and ordered, Don't let it escape, catch it quickly. Whoosh whoosh, as soon as he said that, Little Long Long, who was still in its second combat form, suddenly rushed over like a fireball, raising its fist and punching the void. Bang! The explosive scorching fire fist whistled and blasted directly on the head of the Demon Ridge Black Eagle that had just flown up. Then, the eagle flapped its wings and crashed into the mountain, splashing dust all over the sky. Chapter 570. The Demon Ridge Black Eagle that had just flown up was directly smashed into the mountain by a flaming fist. The vibration and momentum caused by the fall were very powerful. Mo Shang was dumbfounded. This spirit beast that could turn into a monster was too fierce. The corner of Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. Wasn't it afraid that it would kill the other party with one punch? Gradually, the dust dissipated and everything was visible. The huge Demon Ridge Black Eagle was paralyzed in the gravel. Its entire head was swollen and its sharp eyes had turned turbid. It was obvious that it had been beaten unconscious. It had finally recovered from the loss of rationality. It thought that it could spread its wings and soar between heaven and earth, but it was suddenly attacked. It was too pitiful. Shush! Jun Changxiao flew over and saw that the Demon Ridge Black Eagle was dizzy. He said, You hit it too hard. What if its head is damaged? Little Long Long said aggrievedly, I saw that it was quite big and thought that it was very powerful. Who knew that it was so weak? The Demon Ridge Black Eagle almost vomited blood. Brother, with your explosive punch just now, it is already very strong that I didn't pass out directly. Shush. Jun Changshao waved his hand and took out the middle grade Sect Leader Ball. Go, Sect Leader Ball. Dong. It hit the Demon Ridge Black Eagle's head. In the end, there was no reaction. The system said, this is a spirit beast comparable to Wu Huang. It is impossible for the middle grade Sect Leader Ball to subdue it. Okay. Jun Changshao took out the high grade Sect Leader Ball and said, I was thinking too much. Swoosh ding dong. The high-grade Sect Leader Ball hit the Demon Ridge Black Eagle's head and directly turned into a stream of light and merged into the Tai Chi pattern. Mo Shang was shocked. Why did it disappear? Jun Changshao took back all the middle-grade and high-grade Sect Leader Balls and clapped his hands. This trip is not in vain. He found the treasure of the Demon Ridge Valley and caught a middle-grade spirit beast. It was absolutely wonderful. However, come to think of it, how could there be a spirit beast comparable to Wu Huang in the valley? The light that was formed just now attracted so many zombie beasts. Why didn't it appear until the demonic aura disappeared? It seemed to wake up and fly up. The system said, maybe there's some kind of restriction here. Not only can it make the beasts lose their rationality, it can also restrain powerful spirit beasts. The host has found the treasure. The restriction has been lifted. The ferocious beast has regained its rationality. The spirit beast has also regained its freedom. Jun Changshao, who was originally planning to leave, heard what it said and became interested. He said, why don't we look for more crystal nuclei here? The zombie beast recovered. The crystal core must be normal too. No one dared to set foot in this place all year round. It was definitely a huge breeding ground for vicious beasts. Boom! Boom! In the Demon Ridge Valley, the explosions continued. The ferocious beast that had just regained its consciousness was met with a calamity. Especially those special ones, such as the ferocious beasts related to the 5 elements, could not escape from Jun Changshao's demonic clutches. One after another, they contributed their crystal cores. Fortunately, there was only one spiritual beast comparable to Wu Huang in the Demon Ridge Valley. Even if the little dragon was weak, he could easily kill it. 3 days passed. Jun Changshao walked through the entire valley. He killed a lot of high-level ferocious beasts and spiritual beasts comparable to martial kings. The number of spirit nuclei accumulated was also increasing. The Demon Ridge Black Eagle was also released after recuperating in the Sect Leader's Ball. Good heavens! It was about 200 to 300 feet tall, and the hair on its body was like black iron. Its eyes were especially sharp, and it looked extraordinarily mighty. However, thinking of the scene of being beaten up by the little dragon, it suddenly felt a little inferior. It's about time. Jun Changshao grabbed Mo Shang and jumped onto the head of the Demon Ridge Black Eagle. He said, let's go back. Swish! 2 pairs of black wings spread out and suddenly flapped. Whoosh, the wind whistled and dust flew. The Demon Ridge Black Eagle was like a moving hill, slowly flying out of the Demon Ridge Valley. Mo Shang lay on it, holding the hard feathers tightly with both hands for fear of being blown out. His eyes were filled with excitement. Fly! This was the dream of many martial artists in the Falling Star continent. Today, although he could not fly with his own ability, being carried by a flying spirit beast and experiencing the feeling of soaring in the sky was still exciting. Screech! Suddenly, a cold eagle cry came from the sky, breaking the silence and alarming the martial artists who were hurrying and resting. They looked up and gradually widened their eyes. In their field of vision, a giant black eagle was flying. With a flap of its wings, it had already passed several mountains. Oh my God! A martial artist exclaimed, how can there be such a big eagle? On this day, the giant black eagle flew over Dingyang County. Millions of people witnessed it and many martial king experts were alarmed. It was a pity, by the time they rushed over, the behemoth had already flown over thousands of mountains and disappeared. In a dark secret room, dozens of black-robed martial artists were lying on the cold floor as if they were dying. If Yao Menjing was present, she would definitely recognize one of them as Grandpa Lu, who was closest to her. Guardian Lu. A martial artist said weakly, I'm afraid I can't hold on anymore. I can't hold on any longer. I can't go out and kill those deceiving people. I'm really unwilling. Another martial artist said. Buzz. At this moment, the compass-like object in Guardian Lu's hand suddenly lit up. He was stunned for a moment before he exclaimed in ecstasy, the Demon Ridge Valley has a successor. The Demon Ridge Black Eagle has reappeared. What? The dying martial artist seemed to have been injected with chicken blood and became extremely excited. 10,000 years ago, the demon Sect's forces were spread all over the Falling Star continent. The strongest was undoubtedly the Demon Emperor Sect created by the Demon Emperor. Below them were forces like the Demon Ridge Valley. Ha ha ha. Guardian Lu laughed loudly and said, the Demon Ridge Valley that has been sealed for 10,000 years has finally welcomed a successor. He will definitely assist the young master and shoulder the heavy responsibility of reviving the Demon Sect. Boom. Boom. At this moment, the door of the secret room sealed by a formation was bombarded by some kind of force. Oh no. A martial artist said, they're attacking. Guardian Lu frowned and stood up with difficulty. He said resolutely, we swear to protect the Demon Sect's sacred ground with our lives. We swear to protect with our lives. Dozens of injured warriors stood up and leaned against each other shoulder to shoulder. Boom! After dozens of bombardments, the formation collapsed and the stone door was broken open. Hundreds of powerful martial kings rushed in and shouted coldly, today is the day you Demon Sect's remnants die. As long as the heavens and earth are not destroyed, the Demon Sect will exist forever. Guardian Lu shouted, and dozens of Demon Sect's cultivators echoed in unison. Immediately, black streams of light lingered around their bodies and flashed with the most dazzling light. Oh no, boom! On this day, a shocking explosion came from the secret room of the Demon Mountain. Half of the mountain was blown up, and the experts sent by the top 10 righteous sects suffered heavy casualties. The underworld also sent in the latest news. The remnants of the Demon Sect's defenders were completely wiped out. All the martial artists clapped their hands and expressed their deepest condolences to the deceased righteous sects experts. Sect of all times. The moment the Demon Mountain exploded, Yao Menjing, who was in the middle of cultivation, felt her mind shake. Her originally clear eyes suddenly turned deep red. Sooner or later, this emperor will make all of you deceiving righteous sects pay with your lives and souls for the blood feud of 10,000 years. Junior sister. Lu Wancher turned her head and said, what are you talking about? Ah, why are your eyes red? Yao Menjing blinked, and her red eyes returned to normal. She said with a blank face, senior sister, what's wrong? Lu Wancher was speechless. I should be asking you what's going on. Nothing. Yao Menjing said, aren't I cultivating? That's not right. I think I heard you say something about a blood feud and something about paying with your lives and souls. Did I say that? Didn't you say that? I really didn't say that. Okay, you didn't say that. I heard wrong. Go to sleep. Don't just cultivate all day. You have to strike a balance between work and rest. Otherwise, you will become a martial arts nerd like second senior brother and the others. Tisk, Yi Xingqian's eyes were filled with disdain. Although the Devil Ridge Black Eagle's physique was very big, compared to his former mount, the clear sky jade carving, there was still a big gap. Hall Master Li Jun Changshao sat in the main hall and said, "Is there any news recently?" "Yes." Li Luoqiu told him the information she had just obtained. The remnants of the demon sect were destroyed in the Demon Mountain. Jun Changshao touched his chin and said, "I have heard a little about this matter. It seems that many sects are involved." "That's right." Li Luoqiu said, "There are at least 10 sects, and the lowest is third-rate." TSK. Jun Changshao sighed, "Do you hate demon cultivators so much?" Li Luoqiu said, "Patriarch, the righteous sects have zero tolerance for demon cultivators. Once the news that Menjing has the innate demon body spreads out, I'm afraid it will cause big trouble." "So?" Jun Changshao tapped his fingers on the table and said, "No matter what, this matter can't be spread out." "That's right." He looked at Jiang Ye and said, "How is Menjing's cultivation recently?" "She has already entered the peak of martial disciple," Jiang Ye said. Jun Changshao said in surprise, "So fast?" "Patriarch, it's actually not fast." Jiang Ye said, "If there is a professional demon cultivation martial technique, the little girl's aptitude can be fully displayed. It's a pity that the demon sect has been destroyed for thousands of years, and many of their cultivation techniques have long been burned to ashes. There are very few left in the world." Jun Changshao said with a smile, "There are none outside, but there are in the sect of all times." "Huh?" Jiang Ye and Li Luoqiu looked at each other, not understanding the meaning of the patriarch's words for a moment. Yao Menjing was a disciple of the sect of all times, so Jun Changshao didn't care if she was a demon cultivator or an evil cultivator, so he brought Mo Shang to the room where the little girl lived. "Menjing, I've brought you someone of the same path." "Someone of the same path?" Mo Shang was startled. He carefully sized up the 6 or 7-year-old girl in front of him. His heart suddenly trembled, and his hands couldn't help but tremble. For some reason, an invisible force forced him to bend his knees and kneel down. No! How could he kneel down to a little girl? Mo Shang fought against the rising power and finally stabilized his body and legs. "What's wrong with you?" Seeing that his expression was abnormally ugly, Jun Changshao was puzzled. "No. Nothing." Mo Shang squeezed out a smile with difficulty, then cupped his hands and said, "Greetings, little senior sister." Boom! The moment he called out, "Little senior sister," his originally suppressed power erupted like a flood. In the end, he couldn't resist and knelt in front of Yao Menjing. Jun Changshao was stunned. They were all from the same sect, and their seniority was the same. Why was there a need for such a big bow? Yao Menjing also said in surprise, "Patriarch, why is he kneeling?" Mo Shang was about to cry. "I don't fucking know why I'm kneeling." "You! Get up quickly." Yao Menjing was a little flustered. Strangely enough, that invisible force disappeared into thin air, allowing him to get up and say, "Little senior sister," plop. He knelt on the ground again. Jun Chang laughed and said, "You're giving me such a big bow without saying a word. Are you sick?" Mo Shang wanted to cry but had no tears. "Patriarch, I can't control my body at all." Yao Menjing said, "Get up quickly." The force controlling Mo Shang disappeared again. He tried to get up, and the expression on his face was quite interesting. Jun Changshao said, "Call me little senior sister again." Mo Shang said, "Little senior sister." Plop. As soon as he finished speaking, he lost control and knelt on the ground again. Jun Changshao came to a realization and thought to himself, "This kid can't call me little senior sister, otherwise he won't be able to control his body and kneel down. Is it because this girl has the demon emperor's innate devil body and her status is extremely noble, so other devil cultivators have to be careful with their words and actions?" Mo Shang. Jun Changshao said, "Don't call me little senior sister in the future." "Huh?" Mo Shang said, then what should I call you? Jun Changshao was silent for a moment, and said, just call me Little Boss. Little Boss? The corner of Mo Shang's mouth twitched, and said, Patriarch, aren't you also the boss? How can I call a fellow disciple boss? Wouldn't the seniority be messed up? It's fine if you don't call me that, then just keep kneeling. Jun Changshao said. Mo Shang compromised, and cupped his hands at Yao Menjing, Little Boss. Needless to say, when he called out this name, that irresistible force did not appear, and he could not help but feel happy. Mo Shang. Jun Changshao said, from today onwards, you will temporarily teach Menjing demonic path knowledge. Yao Menjing said in surprise, Patriarch, he is also a devil cultivator. Little Boss. Mo Shang said weakly, I can only be considered half a devil cultivator. Chapter 572. Jiang Ye had been in the demon fiend sect before and was considered half an evil cultivator. However, he had nothing to do with a real evil cultivator, so he was powerless to teach Yao Menjing cultivation. Although Mo Shang was not an orthodox one, he was still considered half an evil cultivator. It was undoubtedly a very good choice to teach the little girl. Of course. This teaching was not on martial arts, but on demonic knowledge, so that Yao Menjing could have a more comprehensive understanding. As for the demonic cultivation techniques, Jun Changshao did not take out the ones he obtained from the Demon Ridge Valley for the time being. Instead, he returned to the study and opened the technique pavilion. There were demonic cultivation techniques inside. If it could be exchanged, it should be more profound than the Demon Ridge Valley martial arts, right? Whoosh! He tapped on the demon flame holy slash. The content was 1000399, exchangeable. As expected. Jun Changshao was not surprised. This martial arts technique with the word demonic is a demonic cultivation technique. He kept the interface and continued to look at the secret manuals in the technique pavilion, hoping to find a demonic cultivation technique for Yao Menjing to cultivate. Got it. Blood Cloud Sky Scripture. According to the introduction of the secret manual, this was a domineering cultivation technique that did not take the ordinary path. Proper martial arts cultivators could not cultivate it casually. Otherwise, their meridians would be injured and they would explode and die. The exchange requirement was 1000599, exchangeable. In that case, this was also a demonic cultivation technique because there were a large number of secret manuals in the Demon Ridge Valley that could be exchanged directly. The little girl should focus on cultivation now. Exchanging for a cultivation technique is undoubtedly more valuable than a martial arts technique. However, Jun Changshao was a little hesitant. For now, he did not know if the martial arts techniques in the technique pavilion were as powerful as the introduction said. If it was just an exaggeration, he would say it. Exchanging for 599 Demon Ridge Valley secret manuals from 10,000 years ago would definitely be a loss. The system said, the martial arts techniques in the technique pavilion are equivalent to the martial arts techniques in the store. If the host still has doubts, his brain must have been kicked by a donkey. Hearing this, Jun Changshao directly tapped on, exchangeable. Ding! Consumed 599 secret manuals and successfully exchanged for Blood Cloud Sky Scripture X1. It has been transferred to the space ring. At the same time, the 599 secret manuals of the Demon Ridge Valley that were stored in the spatial ring disappeared into thin air, and a secret manual with a red cover appeared. This secret manual looked very old and gave off a sinister aura. It was easy to tell that it was not a proper martial technique. Jun Changshao threw the bloody cloud heaven incomplete scripture on the table and said, Lass, this seat found a suitable cultivation method for you. You take it and cultivate first. He was never stingy when it came to his disciples. As long as he had something, he would provide it. Furthermore, he would provide the best. Yao Menjing hurriedly walked over and took the secret manual in her hand. Feeling the special aura emanating from it, her mood immediately became incomparably good. She happily said, "Thank you, Patriarch." "Patriarch." Mo Shang said excitedly, "Can I learn it?" That blood cloud heaven incomplete scripture, he only glanced at it from far away and felt a surge of fiendish energy pulling him. He immediately concluded that it was definitely a profound fiend sect martial art. Here. Jun Changshao took out another book from the spatial ring and threw it over. The martial techniques purchased from the cultivation method pavilion could be duplicated. After he exchanged, he directly duplicated 1,000 books. "Many thanks, Patriarch." Mo Shang held the bloody cloud heaven incomplete scripture lovingly, his eyes flickering with excitement. Following this, not only did he act as Yao Menjing's mentor for entering the fiend path, but he also had to study this fiend path mental cultivation method. Little boss. 2 days later, Mo Shang frowned and said, "This mental cultivation method is a little profound. Looks like we need a period of time to comprehend it. It's also not difficult." Yao Menjing said, "I've already learned it." "Learned it?" Mo Shang immediately opened his eyes wide. He comprehended for 2 days and did not gain anything. How could a 6 or 7-year-old girl be so fast? The little girl said, "I've been cultivating these 2 days and can absorb the special energy between heaven and earth for my own use. My strength has clearly increased quite a bit." "These 2 days?" The corners of Mo Shang's mouth twitched and he said, "Could it be that little boss learned the mental cultivation method right after obtaining it from the Patriarch?" Yao Menjing said. Plop. Mo Shang fell to the ground and howled in his heart, "Patriarch, I feel that it's more appropriate for little boss to teach me." Yao Menjing, who possessed the innate devil body, could be said to be cultivating the blood cloud sky scripture at a rather fast speed. With this mental cultivation method, she was destined to step into the demonic path and would never be able to turn back. Whether it was a blessing or a curse, no one knew. Mo Shang was very hurt. Originally, he had been teaching Yao Menjing in the name of the Patriarch. In the end, he had become a student in terms of cultivation and was asking her for advice every day. Needless to say, after a few days, he had benefited a lot and finally started to circulate the blood cloud sky scripture. After successfully cultivating this demonic path mental cultivation method, Mo Shang seemed to have opened a brand new martial arts door and was deeply immersed in it, unable to extricate himself. The reason why he called himself half a demonic cultivator was because he had some understanding of the demonic path, but he had never truly cultivated any demonic path martial arts. Now that he had comprehended the blood cloud sky scripture and began to gather the special attributes that only demonic cultivators had, it meant that he was a true demonic martial cultivator. Mo Shang. One day, Yao Menjing said happily, "I've broken through to the martial master realm." Mo Shang. "I've broken through to the first-grade martial master realm." Mo Shang. "I've broken through to the second-grade martial master realm." Mo Shang. In just half a month, Yao Menjing's realm had advanced by leaps and bounds, directly stepping into the 6th-grade martial master realm. Although she was not the strongest in the sect of all times, she was definitely not at the bottom. More importantly, Yao Menjing was only 6 or 7 years old. To be able to reach such a realm at such a young age was definitely very shocking. Not bad, not bad. After learning about the girl's cultivation speed, Jun Changshao grinned. "Tsk tisk." Jiang Ye said with emotion, "As expected of a demonic cultivator, the speed of improvement is really unimaginable." Patriarch. Ning Duxing frowned and said, "It's a good thing for the girl to improve quickly, but we must keep it a secret. Otherwise, it will only bring disaster." "Yes." Jun Changshao said, "I will pay attention." The only thing he could do now was to not let Yao Menjing go out and cultivate in the sect in peace. Of course, there was no such thing as an airtight wall in the world. Jun Changshao began to plan for the worst. If others knew, how would the sect face it? After thinking about it, he could only let himself and his disciples improve their cultivation in a short period of time, so that they would have the strength to face all the dangers. Cultivate, cultivate. Jun Changshao temporarily handed the sect over to Li Luoqiu and a few elders to manage, and began to concentrate on cultivating. In the following month, he relied on various resources and sat cross-legged in the spirit-gathering array to cultivate crazily, and the energy of the dual spirit cores continued to increase. However, if he wanted to enter the 4th grade, he would need at least 2 to 3 months. That's too slow. Jun Changshao was on the verge of collapse. In the past month, he had absorbed countless natural spirit stones and spirit-gathering pills. If he was a normal martial king, he would definitely be able to advance by 1 grade. Whoosh whoosh. At this moment, a heavy aura suddenly erupted from the inner court and instantly filled the entire sect. Jun Changxiao's spiritual senses spread out and locked onto Yixingqian's room. He grinned and said, "This guy is finally going to break through to the martial king realm." Yes. After nearly 2 months of comprehension, Night Emperor finally found an opportunity and showed signs of advancing. Junior brother Yi is going to break through. Ha ha ha, our sect of all times is going to have another martial king. Whoosh whoosh. Just as Yixingqian was about to break through, a majestic and cold aura emerged from the room in the distance. Jun Changshao was overjoyed and said, "Zhou Hong is also going to become a sword king." On this day, in the sky above the sect of all times, the aura of the martial king and sword king was on par with each other, and their momentum was great. Chapter 573. It was normal for Yixingqian, who cultivated the Taixuan Sutra, to break through to martial king. However, it was unbelievable that Zhou Hong broke through to sword king right after him. One had to know. He had just become a grade 7 sword great master after taking the sword path aptitude liquid. Now, he was going to become a sword king in less than 2 months. That was too fast. It all started with the way he cultivated. Sword path was different from martial path. It was all about comprehension. If one had a sudden epiphany, it would not be a problem for him to break through quickly. Zhou Hong's sword path aptitude had been improved by the liquid and he had comprehended the Ling Jian divine technique. In just 2 months, his understanding of sword path had improved by leaps and bounds. That was how he found the opportunity to break through to sword king. Jun Changshao was very happy. Yixingqian breaking through to martial king and Zhou Hong breaking through to sword king would definitely increase the strength of the sect. Whoosh whoosh, the 2 kings' auras intertwined in the sky above the sect of all times. The momentum was so great that it shocked all the disciples. Li Qingyang and the others who were stuck at Wuzong Peak were inspired by Yixingqian's aura. They all sat down cross-legged and meditated, hoping to learn from it. An hour later, the martial king's aura was gradually withdrawn. Yixingqian, who was in the room, opened his eyes and smiled. He thought to himself, "Today, I return to martial king." Whoosh whoosh. In an instant, a majestic king's aura was released. Jun Changshao smiled. "I broke through." Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others benefited from Yixingqian's martial Dao aura. It would definitely help them break through to martial king. At this moment, Zhou Hong's sharp sword aura was also withdrawn. He successfully became a sword king from sword great master. At this moment, the sect of all times had a martial king and a sword king. On the same day, at the same time, 2 martial kings appeared. If this spread to the outside world, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. "We can't relax either," Li Qingyang said. "Let's break through to martial king as soon as possible." Yes. Xiao Ziji, Su Xiaoma, and the others were not discouraged by junior brother Ye's breakthrough. Instead, they wanted to become even stronger. Yixingqian's and Zhou Hong's breakthroughs had brought the sect of all times' strength to a whole new level. At the same time, it had also spurred the disciples to work even harder in their martial arts training. That was it. Another half a month passed. Yao Menjing's advancement from a 6th grade martial master to a 9th grade martial master was extremely fast. Of course. No matter how fast he was, he could not be faster than He Wudi. This guy had always kept a low profile, as if he didn't exist. However, his cultivation level kept rising. In the past 2 months, he had also stepped into the peak of Wuzong. His aptitude was heaven-defying, and he had all sorts of resources from the sect to support him. If he did not soar, he would be letting down his transcendent grade spirit root. Of course. The cultivation levels of the sect of all time's disciples had also increased as a whole, especially those who had just entered the academy. Their aptitudes were not bad, and their speed of improvement was especially obvious. For example, Jing Wugo. He had just stepped into Wuzong before entering the sect, and now he had reached the 5th grade. Chu Xiunan, Huo Ling, and the others were not as monstrous as their senior, but they also relied on the spirit tempering pill and the 3rd floor of the training tower to successfully step into Wuzong. With the overall strength of the sect of all times, if the Zhenyang County sent another army to invade, they would definitely be beaten to a pulp. Shua Chaochuan, who had been beaten up by Little Long Long, did not have the courage to find trouble with the Azure Sun County. Instead, he obediently operated his own territory. Too slow. After finishing cultivating the spirit-gathering formation, Jun Chengshao sat in his study with his hands on his head. His eyes were filled with despair. During this period of time, the disciples had been cultivating like a raging fire, and their cultivation levels had also increased. However, he was still at the 3rd grade and had not made any substantial progress. Jun Patriarch was not worried that his cultivation level would be surpassed by his disciples. However, as the master of a sect, if his strength did not increase, how would he face the dangers that would appear at any time in the future? Hurry up and give me a mission. Hurry up and give me a reward. Jun Chengshao wished that a mission would appear. After completing it, he would be rewarded with an experience talisman so that he could quickly break through the peak of the Sword and Martial King realm. Then, he would trigger an epic mission and successfully become the Sword and Martial Emperor realm. In your dreams, said the system. Jun Chengshao said, if there's no other way, I can only, whoosh. He opened the system interface and tapped on his name. He gritted his teeth and said, use contribution points to exchange for experience points. When he was still at the channel opening stage, he had used this function before. 47 contribution points were directly cleared, and his cultivation level broke through from stage 7 to stage 10. At that time, no matter how many contribution points he had, they would all be cleared. Now that the system had been continuously upgraded and improved, he could enter a certain number of points to exchange for experience points. There were no missions, no experience talismans. Cultivating step by step was simply too slow. Jun Chengshao had to consider using this method to quickly improve. He raised his head and sang, "How lonely it is to be invincible." Whoosh, the happy football shot toward him. Bang! Jun Chengshao threw a punch. The football flew directly in the opposite direction and hit Li Fei's face with great precision. Then, he flew out of the outer courtyard and landed at the foot of the mountain with an sound. Ha ha ha! Su Xiaoma laughed gloatingly. Especially Chu Xiunan, Huo Ling, and the others who had been ravaged by Li Fei. They were laughing so hard that tears came out. Patriarch. Li Luoqiu walked out of the drizzle hall. She raised her head and said, I just received news that we are in trouble. Trouble? Chapter 574. In the main hall. Jiang Ye and the Ning brothers sat at the head of the table, frowning. The atmosphere was solemn. Jun Chengshao sat at the head of the table with one hand holding his face and the other tapping rhythmically on the table. Humph. After a while, he sneered and said, I just changed the name of the sect, and so many forces are unhappy with me. Li Luoqiu said, Patriarch, our name is too ostentatious. It's inevitable that we will be targeted. Just now, there was news that 5 fourth-rate sects from the neighboring West Cloud State were heading to Qingyang County with the purpose of meeting the sect of all times. In southwest Yangzhou, many forces were unhappy with the new name. However, Jun Changshao had the support of the certification headquarters and the Heavenly Mandate Academy, so no one dared to say anything. The forces outside did not agree. What right did a newly promoted sect have to be named all times? Who gave him the courage to do so? No. They had to meet them. The sects of West Cloud State were not brainless villains. They knew that the sect of all times was rated as one of the top 3 sects, so they must have something extraordinary. So, they joined forces to head to Qingyang County to discuss martial arts. Jiang Yi said, Patriarch, West Cloud State has always been righteous. They have long despised the remote southwest Yangzhou. I'm afraid that the 5 fourth-rate sects are not just here to cause trouble for the sect of all times. The west of the Starfall continent was vast. Among them, the west was the main one, with the northwest above and the southwest below. There were a total of 3 large states. West Cloud State had the best geographical location and was also abnormally rich in natural attributes and resources. It was undoubtedly the strongest. So, the forces and families here had a natural sense of superiority. They did not care about the southwest and northwest states at all. Jun Changshao said, You mean that they came to the sect of all times to cause trouble for the southwest Yangzhou? That's right, Jiang Yi said. Jun Changshao said, If you're looking for trouble, go to the Heavenly Mandate Imperial City. Come to the sect of all times. Do you think I'm easy to bully? The Patriarch changed the name of the sect to the sect of all times and gave them this opportunity, Jiang Yi said. All right. Jun Changshao said, I will let these fourth-rate sects know that in southwest Yangzhou, you can mess with anyone but the sect of all times. Every city in the southwest Yangzhou province received the news that the 5 fourth-rate sects of the West Cloud province had sent experts to the Azure Sun County. Like I said, as long as the name, Sect of All Times gets out, it will definitely attract trouble. See if it's accurate or not. The West Cloud State has long been displeased with our southwest Yangzhou state. This time, they are just using this as a pretext to make a fuss. Fortunately, it's only a 4th-rate sect. If it alarmed a 2nd-rate or 3rd-rate sect, I'm afraid it would be even more troublesome. The sect of all times has been quite arrogant recently. It's not bad to be taught a lesson by others. According to the West Cloud Province's travel route, they will arrive at the Azure Sun County in about 5 days. We can rush there in advance to watch the show. For a time, cultivators from all over southwest Yangzhou flooded into the Azure Sun County. The certification headquarters also received the news. Yi Tianxing shook his head and said, What will come will come. When he decided to announce the name of the sect of all times, he expected that one day, forces from other provinces would come looking for trouble. Headmaster Elder Zhou said, In my opinion, I'm afraid that the certification headquarters of the West Cloud Province is deliberately testing our southwest Yangzhou, a rising sect with the potential to become one of the top 3 sections. Elder Zhen was more impatient and said, This is a typical example of not being able to see others doing well. Yi Tianxing asked, How many people did the West Cloud Province send? 2 Wu Huang, 10 martial kings, and thousands of disciples. Their strength is at the level of Wuzong, Elder Zhou said. This lineup is not small. Yi Tianxing frowned and said, The West Cloud Province wants to use the sect of all times to humiliate southwest Yangzhou. Headmaster Elder Zhou said, The young city lord of Lingting Royal City is also here. Oh. Yi Tianxing held his chin and said, This matter may not be controlled by the certification headquarters of the West Cloud Province, but by the Royal City. Red Lotus. In the academy building, Situ Haoyun said, the West Cloud province sent 5 fourth-rate sects to challenge the sect of all times this time. I'm afraid it's a show of force. Princess Red Lotus said, Father once told me that the Lington royal city will not be quiet for long. The young city lord is also here. As the princess of the heavenly mandate royal city, you should go and meet the sect of all times to avoid being caught by others, Situ Haoyun said. Yes. Princess Red Lotus said, I will go now. After she left, Situ Haoyun looked up at the sky and whispered, Little guy, you changed the name of your sect, so you must be prepared to face all kinds of trouble. Jun Changshao was already prepared. At this moment, not only did he learn about the strength of the sects, but he also triggered a side mission. The content was to defeat the 5 fourth-rate sects from the West Cloud province. Jun Patriarch, who was a little unhappy at first, was now overjoyed. After all, he was worried about not having a mission to do, and now someone was coming to deliver it. 2 Wu Huangs. Sorry, my 2 contracts are enough to destroy them. 10 martial kings. All of you come together, I can fight 10 alone. As for those Wuzong, the disciples of the sect of all times can stand in a row and choose at will. If I don't beat you up, I won't know why the flowers are so red. Patriarch. Li Qingyang said, Elder Ma of the Tsangshan sect is here to see you. Let him in. Jun Changshao said. Ma Yunteng hurried into the main hall and said, Jun Patriarch, the West Cloud province sent 2 Wu Huangs and 10 martial kings. This is a little troublesome. The Tsangshan sect had also received the news and sent him here with the intention of helping. Jun Changshao said proudly, as long as it's not a third-rate sect, even if 10 fourth-rate sects come together, my sect of all times will not be afraid. The corner of Ma Yunteng's mouth twitched. Every time he saw Jun Changshao, he felt that he was getting stronger. But, that arrogance and haughtiness of his was also getting stronger. Jun Patriarch was arrogant because he was getting more and more confident. If he became stronger and still acted like a grandson, that would be too fucked up. For the next few days, the martial cultivators and forces of the southwest Yangzhou province gathered at the foot of Iron Bone Mountain. They were unable to enter the mountain gate because they were restricted. Xie Guangkuan, Ai Shangyao and the others could enter and leave freely. After all, their relationship with the sect of all times was very close. Qin Haoran and the people from the 100 Sect Alliance also came. However, compared to the forces of the southwest Yangzhou province, they were as inconspicuous as ants. At this moment, Alliance Master Qin and the big shots of the Alliance were already very low-key. Their hatred for Jun Changshao was long gone. When a person was very rich, others would look down on them and gossip behind their backs. When a person was sitting on billions of assets, they would obediently shut their mouths, because it was already beyond their level of discussion. The current sect of all times, in the eyes of Alliance Master Qin and the big shots of the Alliance, was an unreachable giant. Naturally, they did not have the courage to face it. Of course, Jun Changshao had long forgotten about this enemy force, because they were no longer a threat. In the future, they would have to face greater challenges. The life and death arena at the foot of the mountain was not dismantled. The 5th day. Jun Changshao sat on top with his legs crossed, quietly waiting for the guests who came from thousands of miles away. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others stood below the arena with their chests puffed out. This scene seemed familiar. Previously, when the evil forces of Huayang province were instigated by the deicide shrine branch to fight, Jun Patriarch had set up the arena like this and had a fair fight with them. Until today. Huayang province had been swallowed by Xinjiang province, and the former Iron Bone had become the sect of all times. Jun Patriarch. Princess Red Lotus, who had arrived yesterday, sat to the side and asked, this time, the West Cloud province came prepared. Do you have a chance of winning? Yes. How much? 100%. Jun Changshao said firmly, which made Princess Red Lotus fall silent. She thought to herself, I hope so. They're here. They're here. Someone shouted. Jun Changxiao's spiritual senses spread out. On a small path in the distance, two Wu Huang with strong auras led thousands of martial artists over. Their martial arts cultivation erupted, shocking the martial artists of southwest Yangzhou province. They had not arrived, but their aura was. This was a show of strength. Jun Changxiao flicked his hard black hair and said loudly, all disciples, release your aura and warmly welcome our friends from afar. Chapter 575. The people from the 5 fourth-rate sects of West Cloud State had yet to arrive, but their aura had already arrived. It was obvious that they wanted to intimidate the martial cultivators present. They were so arrogant in other people's territory. It could be seen how much they looked down on southwest Yangzhou. It was impolite not to reciprocate. Jun Changxiao immediately ordered the disciples to release their cultivation and return the favor in the same way. Whoosh whoosh. In an instant, the disciples of the sect of all times no longer used the hidden cultivation technique to suppress their cultivation and released their realms in an instant. The aura that was difficult to detect with the naked eye rushed toward the 5 major sects of West Cloud State. Tens of thousands of disciples released their cultivation, forming a wave that could topple mountains and overturn seas. The surrounding branches trembled and leaves fell wildly. The martial cultivators of southwest Yangzhou were stunned. Oh my God! The aura of these disciples was so strong that it felt like they were not mediocre at all. Humph! The two Wu Huang at the front had a trace of disdain in their eyes. They immediately released a little of their cultivation, as if it had turned into a big hand and pressed down on the incoming aura. Whoosh whoosh! The aura of the two Wu Huang collided violently with the aura of the sect of all time's disciples. Although the martial cultivators present could not see it with their eyes, they could feel the cold wind whistling and their expressions changed again and again. This new sect with the potential to be in the top 3 was really valiant. They dared to compete with the aura of the two Wu Huang. Whoosh whoosh! The realm aura was still fiercely fighting in the void. Because the opponent was too strong, the sect of all time's disciples could not resist and soon fell into a disadvantageous position and were pushed back. You overestimate yourselves. One of the Wu Huang from West Cloud State said lightly. It was undeniable that the aura of the sect of all time's disciples was strong, but it was no doubt a fool's dream to shake a powerhouse of his level. Whoosh! Jun Changxiao stood up and put his hands behind his back. The thick and sharp aura of the two kings of sword and martial arts erupted. Whoosh whoosh! The aura of the sect of all time's disciples, who were retreating, stabilized the situation with the support of the patriarch's sword and martial arts and began to counterattack. Wu Huang frowned slightly. The young man in the ring had such a strong dual aura. He should be the patriarch of the sect of all times. Today. This old man wants to see what's so special about the sword and martial kings. Wu Huang stood where he was with his hands clasped behind his back. His majestic aura whizzed out and clashed madly with the power of the sword. It was a pity. Wanting to suppress the momentum of Jun Changxiao and the other disciples with his strength alone was undoubtedly a bit wishful thinking. It's not. Under the relentless barrage of attacks, Zhang Xian's face was about to turn green, but he was still unable to gain the upper hand. With Jun Patriarch's current strength, when he unleashed the aura of the sword and martial kings, an ordinary Wu Huang might not be able to take advantage of him. Elder Qi. This old man will lend you a hand. Wu Huang from the West Cloud State immediately released his emperor's aura. However, he had just released his aura. Yi Xingqian, Zhou Hong, Jiang Ye, and the Ning brothers also released their auras. Whoosh whoosh! The wind howled, causing the trees to sway unsteadily. Crack! Crack! Many trees could not withstand the force of the wind and were snapped in half. Oh my God! The martial cultivators from southwest Yangzhou all widened their eyes. The two forces had not met yet and had not said a word, but they were already competing with each other in such a thrilling aura. This was too explosive. 10 minutes later. Although the two Wu Huang from the West Cloud State were still releasing their aura, their faces were extremely ugly. Because even with the two of them working together, they still could not gain the upper hand. You could say that the sect of all times was relying on their numbers. But don't forget that they were facing two genuine Wu Huang. If it were other fifth-rate sects, with all their strength, not to mention fighting against two, they couldn't even withstand one. Among the martial cultivators who came to watch the battle, there was no lack of powerful ones. They were all amazed in their hearts. This new sect was indeed worthy of being one of the top 3 potential sections. They were not even afraid of facing Wu Huang. Little Long Long, who was lying on the arena, yawned and sent a sound transmission, "Master, do you need my help?" "No need." Jun Changshao said, "Go back to sleep." "Okay." Little Long Long continued to lie on the arena, and his eyelids gradually closed. "Both of you." Princess Red Lotus could no longer sit still. She stood up and said, "It's meaningless to continue like this. Why don't we each take a step back and have a friendly martial arts exchange?" "Humph." The two Wu Huang snorted and immediately retracted their auras of Wu Huang. They also realized that it would be difficult to suppress them if they continued fighting like this. Since someone was giving them a way out, they had to accept it. Moreover, they did not come to Zhenyang County to compete with their auras. The two Wu Huang retracted their auras first. Jun Changshao and the other disciples also did so. The area immediately became quiet. Princess Red Lotus. At this moment, a feminine voice sounded, "We haven't met in a long time, right?" The person who spoke was a slender young man. Chapter 576. After Ling Yufang appeared, he rubbed salt on the wound and mocked the sect of all times as an ancient sect. He was definitely someone who deserved a beating. To be honest, this was the first time he met such a character since he transmigrated. If he didn't crush his dignity, how could he face the audience? The sect of all times welcomes everyone to discuss martial arts, but... Jun Changshao paused and said, "Will young Master Ling come personally or send someone else?" Ling Yufang smiled and said, "To show my respect, of course the experts of the West Cloud State will come and challenge your sect." Although this guy was arrogant, he wasn't a fool. He had more or less heard about the sect of all times. He definitely wouldn't go up this time. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "Young Master Ling, the people you brought won't do." "Won't do?" The two Wu Huang and 10 martial kings frowned. Ling Yufeng smiled and said, "Whether they can or not, we'll only know after we ask." Jun Patriarch, don't jump to conclusions. No means no. Jun Changshao said. The experts of the West Cloud State had ugly expressions. They couldn't stand being looked down upon by a young man. Ling Yufeng smiled and said, "Jun Patriarch, you're very confident. If you insist, I'll accompany you to the end." Jun Changshao said, "This life and death arena is my sect's challenge arena. Young Master Ling can send someone up to fight." In that case. Ling Yufeng didn't want to waste any more time and said, "Then I'll accept." He waved his hand. Swoosh. A tall young man jumped onto the arena and cupped his hands. Xingyun Sect's inner disciple, Wu Kuei, requests to fight. This person was tall and sturdy with thick arms. It was obvious that his external martial arts were very strong. Yuhua. Jun Changshao said calmly, "Go." Yes. Yang Yuhua stepped onto the arena with a burning gaze. He didn't expect that the Patriarch would let him be the first to fight in such an occasion. Jun Changshao and Princess Red Lotus walked down and handed the arena to Yang Yuhua and Wu Kuei. The martial cultivators who were watching the show couldn't take their eyes off him. The Xingyun sect was a rather prestigious fourth-rate sect in the West Cloud State. The strength of their inner sect disciples was certainly not bad. This battle was bound to be very exciting. Of course. As someone from southwest Yangzhou, he hoped that the disciples of the sect of all times would win. However, the other party had traveled such a long distance to cause trouble for him. How could the disciple who was sent out be ordinary? The chances of him winning were probably not high. Boom. A loud boom came from the arena, indicating that the battle had begun. The martial artists watching the battle widened their eyes in unison because the Xingyun sect disciple named Wu Kuei was forced to retreat continuously. Ling Yufang said, "Jun Patriarch, aren't you afraid of being ridiculed by the people of Jianghu for letting such a person become an elder?" The martial artists of the southwest Yangzhou discussed in low voices. They had heard of the Ning duo of the southeast Yangzhou, but they did not expect them to be an elder of the sect of all times. Letting such a person hold an important position in the sect would definitely be gossiped about. Young Master Ling, Jun Changshao said, "You don't have to worry about the people of my sect." Elder Sun said indifferently, "In this old man's opinion, since Jun Patriarch recruited such a person, there must be a lot of criminals in the sect." Ning Duzue said, "If you want to fight, then fight. Don't talk nonsense." Elder Sun said with disdain, "If not for the arena, this old man really doesn't want to fight with thieves like you to avoid dirtying my hands." Schwa. Ning Duzue could not stand it anymore and stepped forward. Dense spiritual energy erupted and instantly formed a dense number of fist shadows. Before joining the sect, he was a fifth-grade martial artist, and he was still a fifth-grade martial artist. Although he did not break through, he took the body-shaping pill, spirit tempering pill, and various kinds of tempering. His strength increased significantly. Boom! Boom! On the arena, there was a burst of crazy explosions. Thump thump thump. Elder Sun, who was also a fifth-grade martial artist, could not withstand the power of the explosion. The air wall collapsed and he staggered back. It could be said that he was in a sorry state. Bang! Just as he stabilized his body, Ning Duzue's fist with violent spiritual energy directly hit his face. Wah! This group of people was very energetic. Not only did Elder Sun's blood spurt out, but 2 rows of teeth also flew out. Plop! Elder Sun fell at the edge of the arena. He was dizzy from the bombardment. Ning Duzue walked over and directly rode on his body like an ordinary person fighting. He raised his fist and said, "I don't mind dirtying my hands." Boom! Boom! Spiritual energy spread and the floor shook. After a torrential storm of violence, Elder Sun was beaten into a pig's head by Ning Duzue and fainted on the spot. Everyone's mouth twitched. This was a fight between martial king-level martial artists. In the end, not only was there no exciting battle, it was more like an adult bullying a child. Chapter 577. Plop! Elder Sun, who had fainted, was thrown out of the stage. Just now, he was complaining about dirtying his hands, but now, his head was stuck on the ground. So, everyone was already an adult, so there was no need to act cool. Patriarch. Ning Duzue stood on the stage. His hands were stained with blood, but he had no intention of coming down. He said, "I can still fight." Jun Changshao touched his nose and said with a smile, "Young Master Ling, continue to send people to fight." Damn it! Ling Yufang's eyes flickered with anger. It was acceptable for the martial king to be defeated, but it was not acceptable for him to be so easily trampled. "I'll do it." Xingyun sect's elder Hu volunteered. His strength was 2 levels higher than Elder Sun's. He was already a 7th-grade martial king. "Go," Ling Yufang said. Whoosh! Elder Hu flew up and landed on the stage. He said coldly, "Xingyun sect's elder Hu Shao." Don't talk nonsense. Ning Duzue said, let's start. Hu Shao spread out his hands, and a majestic spiritual energy instantly spread out like a big net. Seeing elder son being oppressed without any power to fight back, he realized that the opponent was very strong. So, he had to take the initiative first. Spirit explosion seal. Hu Shao shouted. The spiritual energy that spread out crisscrossed and turned into a big hand that pressed down on Ning Duzue. His psionic powers gathered explosive power and created a matcha with the air. Instantly, a terrifying, kacha-kacha sound could be heard. Ning Duzue sneered, took 2 steps back, and stretched out his hands. Hu. The red power hidden between heaven and earth quickly gathered in his palms, forming a dazzling light. This was 7 profound sunglow break. After the Ning brothers joined the sect of all times, except for special martial skills like body metamorphose scripture, they had basically learned all martial skills. So strong. As expected of our elder. The eyes of the disciples of the sect of all times suddenly burned. They also practiced this kind of profound martial skill, but its power could not be compared with Ning Duzue's. Sensing the 2 crimson energies, Hu Shao frowned slightly. His hands once again formed a seal, and the explosive energy that rushed over suddenly increased in speed. Ning Duzue's face was expressionless. He stretched out his 10 fingers, and 2 beams of red energy shot out. Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 crimson beams of light instantly rushed into the explosive force, penetrating through it at an extremely fast speed, and blasted onto Hu Xiao's shoulders with incomparable precision. This process was too fast. It was so fast that Hu Xiao had no time to dodge. It wasn't until his shoulders were pierced through and the intense pain spread through his body that his face gradually became ferocious. The martial skill he released also came to an abrupt halt due to the collapse of his mind. Schwa. Ning Duzue arrived in front of Hu Xiao and coldly said, "Get lost." Bang! A punch landed on his face, and his entire body flew out like a kite with a broken string, before landing heavily on the ground. The spectating martial artists were all dumbfounded. The second elder from the Xingyun sect was beaten down so quickly. Young Master Ling Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "Since you have come to challenge the sect of all times, you should show your sincerity instead of letting these shrimp soldiers and crab generals go on stage and embarrass yourselves." Everyone's mouth twitched violently. A high-grade martial king was described as a shrimp soldier and crab general. Jun Patriarch, you are really shameless. Kacha. Ling Yufeng clenched his fists tightly, burning with anger. This time, he was ordered by his father to test this newly risen sect of all times. He thought it would be easy, but he didn't expect it to be so troublesome. Everyone. He suppressed his anger and said, "Who will fight with this thief?" Young City Lord Wu Huang, who was sent by the Xingyun sect, said in a deep voice, "This old man will go and meet him." Schwa. As he spoke, he had already landed on the stage. Of course. He didn't want to fight with Ning Duzue, but with Jun Changshao and said, "I heard that Jun Patriarch is a rare martial king and sword king. This old man would like to experience it." Jun Changshao smiled and said, "You want to challenge this seat?" "That's right." Wu Huang said. This time, he didn't come here to fight one battle at a time and then decide the winner by winning. As long as he could teach this patriarch a lesson, it would be equivalent to completing his mission. Little Long Long, who was lying under the stage, became energetic and began to warm up. "Okay." Jun Chang smiled and said, "I have come to exchange pointers with the martial emperor." Little Long Long was stunned. "Master wants to fight with Wu Huang personally?" "Yes." After breaking through to the 4th grade martial king and sword king, Jun Changshao wanted to see how big the gap was between him and Wu Huang. Jun Patriarch. Princess Hong Lian reminded, "This person is called Ge Tuhong, one of the 2 remaining grand elders of the Xingyun sect." His strength can't be underestimated. It's best to send Wu Huang. This woman thinks I can't beat him. Not only Mu Honglian, but when Jun Changshao took the initiative to fight, the martial cultivators present didn't think they could win. After all, this was a martial cultivator at Wu Huang's level. This kind of trash doesn't need Wu Huang of the Sect of all times to fight. Jun Patriarch flew up and landed on the stage. He howled in his heart, although Elder Wei is Wu Huang, he has no combat ability at all. The disciples of the Sect of all times had unlimited potential. However, in terms of peak strength, it was very awkward if they didn't count as contracted beasts. At the foot of the mountain, there was an open space. Jun Changshao and Gu Tuhong were separated by dozens of feet. One was the sword and martial king, while the other was a martial cultivator, Wu Huang. Therefore, they didn't fight in the arena. Instead, they chose to fight in a more spacious area so that they could fight freely. The patriarch of the Sect of all times facing Wu Huang was undoubtedly very attractive. Many martial cultivators stood in the distance and stared intently. The number of times they blinked decreased, afraid that they would miss it if they weren't careful. Jun Patriarch. Gu Tuhong said with his hands behind his back, "How shall we fight?" "Let's use our fists first," Jun Changshao said. "All right." Gu Tuhong clenched his fists. Thick spiritual energy gathered and gradually solidified, as if he was wearing a pair of iron gloves. The system said, martial cultivators at Wu Huang's level have a strength of more than 5 million kilograms. The host should be careful. Okay. Jun Changshao didn't dare to be careless. He released his spirit armor and instantly materialized a silver-white battle armor around his body. Under the sunlight, it could be said to be dazzling. This guy was definitely not trying to act cool. He hoped to rely on the armor and the dazzling light produced by the sun to dazzle the opponent's titanium alloy dog eyes and help in the battle. "Can we start?" "Come on," Jun Changshao said. Buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, the space in front of him shook. A huge fist appeared out of thin air and came crashing down with a force of 10,000 kilograms. Boom! The earth shook and a violent wave of air whizzed out. It was like a ripple that spread hundreds of feet in an instant. The martial cultivators who were far enough away felt the momentum and were so shocked that they all retreated. Their faces were filled with horror. Just now. What happened? When the remaining power dissipated, everyone looked hard and saw that Jun Changshao had already retreated dozens of steps. His legs sank several inches into the ground and his hands were in a defensive position. In the battle zone. The space was still distorted and couldn't heal in a short period of time. Jun Changshao looked up and grinned. As expected of a martial cultivator from Wu Huang. This punch is powerful. Gu Tuhong's eyes were filled with surprise. He had punched out across space and Wu Huang was able to withstand it. This was really unexpected. Chapter 578. Boom. Boom. There were continuous explosions on the open grassland as psionic energy whizzed out. The spectating martial artists all widened their eyes. There was only one emotion in their eyes, and that was fear. In their field of vision. Gu Tuhong had his hands behind his back as if he was taking a stroll. In the void in front of him, giant fists were constantly condensing and bombarding. Oh my God! He can fight like this. A martial king exclaimed, a martial emperor's control of psionic energy is terrifying. Without even moving his hands, he could gather psionic energy and condense fists in the void to launch a crazy attack on the patriarch of the Sect of all times. This gave many people a new understanding of battle. A moment later, Tu Hong stopped and a smile appeared on his face. Even if that kid could withstand his attacks, his body wouldn't be able to. He was probably seriously injured at this moment. The next second, the smile on his face froze. After the air waves and dust dissipated, Jun Changshao, who was wearing a silver armor, was still standing. He grinned and said, "If this is Wu Huang, then I'm very disappointed. Oh my god. Jun Patriarch is actually fine. Even if he has copper muscles and iron bones, he won't be able to withstand such a powerful attack. What a joke. Jun Patriarch was protected by a spirit armor. How could Wu Huang hurt him with the purest psionic energy?" Gu Tuhong said, "Jun Patriarch, this old man is going to get serious now." Huff huff, he opened his hands and a thick stream of energy gathered in his palms. Although it wasn't much, it was extremely pure. He's getting serious. Just now, he was just using psionic energy to gather strength. I'm afraid he's going to use martial arts this time. A powerhouse at Wu Huang's level has a far better understanding of martial arts than others. The increase in power is unimaginable. A few martial kings who were watching the battle discussed in low voices. Ta! Jun Changshao stepped forward, his eyes shining with passion. During this period, he had always faced all kinds of opponents with an invincible posture. Now that he met Wu Huang, he finally experienced the hot-bloodedness that young people should have. "You rotten old man, let's fight." Under the support of its owner's strong fighting spirit, the armor once again became dazzling. Gu Tuhong raised his palms, and two streams of spiritual energy converged. Then, he waved the two fingers of his right hand, and the energy lingered like fairies. He said, "Finger of long eyebrows." Whoosh, the slender beam of light pierced through space and arrived at an extremely fast speed. Just as Gu Tuhong made his move, scorching flames erupted from Jun Changxiao's body and rapidly converged together. Scarlet Heaven Raging Flame Slash. He roared angrily, and the flame chop seal condensed in midair directly met the attack. The scorching power tore through the space, and crackling sounds could be heard. The blade chi that contained the power of the 5 elements directly collapsed under the compression of space. Jun Changshao, who had not yet landed, was suddenly sent flying and then staggered backward. Crack, the green dragon crescent blade stabbed into the ground, stopping the momentum of retreat. No. Wu Huang was too strong. Even if the green dragon crescent blade had the 5 elements attribute, even if Wu Xing's soul was activated, there was still a gap. The system said, the difference between the martial king and Wu Huang is not only in strength, but also in the understanding of heaven and earth. The host wants to defeat someone of a higher level with a 4th grade cultivation, it's really wishful thinking. Wishful thinking? Jun Changshao laughed. Whoosh whoosh, in an instant, an incomparably cold sword aura spread out from his body and instantly rushed in all directions. Gu Tuhong said indifferently, "Do you want to use the power of the Sword King?" "Old man." Jun Changshao, who was in the middle of the sword aura, said proudly, "I have a sword move that can cut the stars above and break the rivers below. Do you dare to take it?" "Why wouldn't I dare?" Gu Tuhong sneered. Jun Changshao put his hands behind his back. His clothes fluttered in the cold and fierce wind, and the sword aura that spread out became stronger. At that moment, many martial artists felt that this guy seemed to be getting sharper and sharper, as if he had become a sharp sword that was about to be unsheathed. Buzz! 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 Under the sword aura, the swords of many martial artists trembled. When they wanted to use their hands to stop it, they heard a clang and their swords directly flew out. Clang! Clang! The sound of sword aura being unsheathed rang out one after another. Gu Tuhong was stunned and subconsciously looked back. He saw a dense number of sharp swords, forming a sword rain, flying over his head. This. He widened his eyes. Clang! Clang! The swords of the disciples of the sect of all times flew over from another direction. For a moment, in the sky behind Jun Changshao, thousands of sharp swords were suspended, revealing an incomparably sharp aura. Why did my sword fly out? I can't control it at all. Jun Patriarch once used this sword move in the Imperial City. The cultivator from the Imperial City of Heavenly Mandate recalled the scene of Jun Changshao and O Yangli fighting. Looking at the thousands of swords suspended in the air, a dignified look appeared in his eyes, and he said in a low voice, Jun Patriarch, what sword move is this? 10,000 swords in one. Whoosh! 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 Thousands of swords flashed and instantly gathered together, forming a giant sword like a mountain peak, slashing down at Gu Tuhong. Whoosh! The giant sword fell, and the sword aura exploded. Gu Tuhong's expression changed greatly because there was a sword aura that was like Wu Huang's domain that instantly bound him. At this moment, all he could do was brace himself and take the blow. Chapter 579. Thousands of sharp swords converged, like a tall and straight mountain peak piercing the clouds, revealing the supreme sword power. Everyone present held their breath, and their eyes were filled with horror. At that moment, that scene, it would be imprinted in their hearts forever, and they would never forget it. Whoosh! The giant sword slashed down, and the sword power erupted. Wu Huang level Gu Tuhong was bound by the sword momentum, and it was difficult for him to dodge. He could only take it head-on. Ah! He roared angrily and stimulated all his cultivation. The void in front of him instantly rippled, and lines of solid enchantments condensed and formed. Full defense. Just to meet the 10,000 swords in one. To be able to force Wu Huang to this point, even if Jun Changshao could not defeat his opponent, it was enough to prove himself. Whoosh! The sword momentum rippled, and the world lost its color. Under everyone's shocked gaze, the giant sword slammed down and collided with the first enchantment condensed by Gu Tuhong. Bang! Broken. Bang! The second enchantment was broken. Bang! 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 In an instant, the following three defensive enchantments were also broken. The power of the giant sword was irresistible. Puff! Gu Tuhong spat out blood. At this moment, there was only one enchantment left in front of him, but under the sword momentum, it was like a candle in the wind, and it could be extinguished at any time. Not allowed. Not allowed. Gu Tuhong's eyes widened, and he suddenly raised his palms. Whoosh! The last psionic energy in his dantian was stimulated to strengthen the enchantment, just to defend the dignity of Wu Huang. Boom! The giant sword slammed down like a mountain. Whoosh! The violent sword intent madly wreaked havoc around, as if it had turned into an invisible sickle, sweeping through the empty grassland. The weeds within a radius of 10,000 feet were harvested close to the ground, and the stones were flattened. The big trees showed sword marks, and then were cut in half. The martial artists watching the battle were far enough away. Otherwise, they would have been directly strangled by the sword intent. My God! This is too terrible. Everyone was terrified and subconsciously stepped back a lot. Another Wu Huang from the West Cloud State had a solemn expression. He could not imagine that the patriarch of the sect of all times would have such a powerful sword move. If he were to take it head-on, he would definitely be in a very difficult situation. Crack! The sound of something collapsing suddenly rang out in the quiet environment. Although everyone did not see it immediately, they could also guess that the last enchantment that Gu Tuhong condensed must have been broken. Whoosh! 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 Right at this moment, streaks of sharp swords flew up and hovered above Jun Changshao again, flashing with dazzling light. Opposite. Gu Tuhong stood in place. Although he was still standing, his hands were hanging by his sides. His face was abnormally pale, and he looked like he was about to collapse. Taking the 10,000 swords returned to one head-on only caused him to suffer minor injuries, but the energy in his body had been depleted by 80 to 99%. The corner of Jun Changshao's mouth rose as he smiled. You've lost. Hu Gutuhong exhaled and clasped his hands together with difficulty. Thank you, Jun Patriarch, for showing mercy. After the last defensive enchantment that he condensed was broken, the power of the sword was still very strong, and it could have gone with the flow. However, the moment it fell, it suddenly disintegrated, then turned into a stream of light and flew back. How could Gutuhong not know that this was done deliberately by the other party? Otherwise, if he took that sword head-on in his exhausted state, he would definitely have died or been injured. Jun Changshao said, "It's just a spar, not a battle of life and death." System, after this guy used the 10,000 swords returned to one, the spiritual energy in the two spirit cores was almost depleted. He did not make the final cut, but deliberately made it look like he was pulling back. Unexpectedly. That guy really believed it. Young Master Ling, Jun Changshao said, "You can let the other Wu Huang continue to fight. I will accompany you to the end." He wanted to fight Wu Huang again. Awesome. The warriors of southwest Yangzhou all looked at him with admiration and respect. In his own territory, he had beaten Wu Huang of West Yunzhou until he was convinced. How proud he was. Elder Lu. Ling Yufang said, "Let's fight." The Wu Huang, called Lu Shangqing's mouth twitched slightly. The patriarch of the sect of all times looked as if nothing had happened. Those thousands of swords were still hanging in the air. If he made another move, he would definitely not be able to take it. Young city lord. Lu Shangqing said, "Jun Patriarch is still a king level. If this old man fights with him again, I will be ridiculed by the people of Jianghu." The power of the 10,000 swords returned to one shocked this Wu Huang, and he did not have the courage to fight. Of course. Lu Shangqing was not thinking about the two Wu Huangs fighting a king level and being ridiculed by others. He was thinking about the two Wu Huangs not being able to defeat a king level and being ridiculed by others. People who had reached a certain level and age would definitely care about their reputation. And this. It also gave Jun Changshao a way out. He said, "If that's the case, then continue to challenge the disciples of the sect of all times." Xiao. Xiao. The sword aura that filled the air dissipated, and the thousands of swords in the air all flew back to their respective owners. Damn it. Ling Yufang was extremely angry. He originally thought that coming to southwest Yangzhou under his father's orders would be a very simple matter. He did not expect the sect of all times to be so troublesome that even Wu Huang could not do anything about it. Patriarch. Su Xiaoma volunteered, "This disciple would like to fight with young Master Ling from the Imperial City." He did not like Ling Yufang for a long time. Jun Changshao said, "You'll have to ask if young Master Ling is interested." Young Master Ling, Su Xiaoma smiled, "Can you come up to the stage and fight with me?" Before Ling Yufang could say anything, he said again, "If you're not willing, I won't force you. After all, the people I sent have already lost so many battles, you won't make a difference." These words were a bit mischievous. The arrogant Ling Yufang's eyes were instantly filled with anger. Senior brother Su. Li Fei smiled, "You can't underestimate young Master Ling. If he didn't have the ability, how could he become the young master of the Imperial City?" "That's hard to say." Su Xiaoma said, "Some people are born into a good family and have a good father. Even if they don't have the ability, they can still do well." Kacha, Ling Yufang clenched his fists tightly, his anger erupting. What he could not stand the most was others thinking that he relied on his father. The truth. It really was the truth. Jun Changshao clasped his hands, "These two disciples of mine are talking nonsense. Young Master Ling, please don't lower yourself to their level. Besides, what's wrong with relying on your father? Other people can't even rely on you." Everyone's mouth twitched. "Jun Patriarch, you're purposely provoking young Master Ling. Hurry up and apologize to young Master Ling," Jun Changshao said in a low voice. Su Xiaoma and Li Fei clasped their hands, "Young Master Ling, we were wrong. You have a good father. You're amazing. The two of them echoed each other, making Ling Yufeng's nose crooked. In the end, he could not control his emotions and shouted, "Fine, I'll fight the disciples of the sect of all times." He could not take it anymore. He had to fight. He had to let others know that he relied on himself, not his father. Young master. Lu Shengqing wanted to persuade him, but Ling Yufeng said in a low voice, "I've made up my mind." You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.